You can also over the last few, actually over about the last hour, we've seen a huge police presence on campus as everyone has just been trying to figure out what is going on there.
Just trying to honestly just make sense of everything. I mean, you said it right. It's definitely a scary situation to go into the start of a new and fresh school year as well too. Governor Roy Cooper, he also tweeted today that his office is in communication with law enforcement and officials at UNC-Chapel Hill who are taking precautions. In this video as well too, you see students earlier, but here are just some law enforcement walking on sidewalks, just like Chad mentioned. You see dogs and an ambulance and a ton of law enforcement on campus as well too.
And Governor Cooper was really actually the first person to even confirm that there was a shooting just about 45 minutes ago. Keep in mind that we had been hearing about shots or some sort of situation that happened on campus. But 41 minutes ago, the governor tweeted, "My office is in communication with law enforcement and officials at UNC-Chapel Hill who are taking precautions to protect campus safety following today's shooting. This is a tragic way to start a new semester, and the state will provide any assistance necessary to support the UNC community." Now, keep in mind the beginning of school. This is just the 6th day of classes for students at UNC-Chapel Hill. They moved in days prior to that. This is supposed to be the very exciting beginning part of the school year for students of all ages. We're going to bring in Eric Chilton here, who obviously went to UNC. I imagine very tough to see this happening on your campus right now.
Yeah, this is rough, and I'm looking at thinking about the map of where they said this took place, correct? So they said this is part of the science area. So if you know where UNC Hospitals resides, which is very close to the Dean Dome as well and the bell tower, but just to the north of that, the Genome Science Building is on the same drive, roughly speaking, as South Road, and that's where the bell tower is, which is like iconic landmark there for Chapel Hill. So those of you that are familiar with that area, if you pass the bell tower on your left and you're heading up, really it's up toward a lot of the dorms and the ROTC building, Whitehead dorm, up that way and take a left just near the hospital. And what's interesting to me about that location is if this person fled on foot, we don't know that, but if they did, there are tons of trees around Keenan Stadium, and this is very close to the football stadium. So he could be sheltering in that area if indeed that is the person of interest, is the actual person that did this. So there are lots of, if you want to call it, hiding places around there, because Chapel Hill, unlike some big colleges with lots of asphalt and lots of buildings, has lots of trees around the area, especially around the football stadium. So that's an interesting location for police to try to get him. To me, it hurts, you know. I mean, this is my school with lots of memories there, so I hate to see this.
And you can probably, you know, imagine too, Eric, just with the students who obviously have been told, you know, UNC did put out that alert on campus warning students, go inside, avoid any windows, and of course them knowing the campus just as much as you, thinking about this person again who may or may not have fled on foot. Where is this person at all? Having those conversations and talks in the classrooms, as well as maybe even trying their best to communicate with their parents if they haven't already, but just a thing of the unknown, so to say.
Well, and if you're a parent too, like I'm thinking about this with my kids, I have 2 in college right now, and I'm thinking if I'm a parent of a kid that goes to UNC-Chapel Hill at this point, then if I were you, I'd be following Twitter and the Alert Carolina account, because they are giving some pretty decent updates. A lot of times there's not a whole lot of information coming about this because they can't yet, right, with the investigation. But if you can't reach your child that way, at least know what the situation is by looking at those accounts.
That's right, that's right. And also hoping to keep each other calm, you know, as well too. Being as calm as you can, trusting the first responders that are out there on the scene. Again, this is definitely a live look at WNCN. You can see what appears to be some students as well, maybe, and some students walking there on the sidewalk, looking as calm as possible. They're right next to law enforcement who are doing their best to get a handle on this situation. Again, police have said that this person is armed and dangerous, a person of interest on campus, as they are trying to just navigate and locate this person.
And Eric, you had mentioned about the Alert Carolina feature. Just about 20 minutes ago, they put out on social media that the update is basically stay sheltered in place until the all clear is given. All classes and events canceled for the rest of the day. I imagine as a parent of kids who are in college, this is your resource. And this is
Yes.
what you're keeping your eye on.
And I keep thinking of, so for example, my best friend growing up in Mount Airy, his daughter just went to Carolina as a freshman, and I've reached out to him, no word back from him, but that's got to be so unnerving. I can't. I'm thinking of myself in that situation. I don't know what I do, but again, all you can do is reach out to these resources, keep an eye on it, and try to reach your loved one with a cell phone.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And you think about it, boy, this has just become the new normal.
I know.
I mean, last Friday, the last time we were at work, last Friday, we came on to the news at 11 o'clock, breaking news with a shooting that had happened at North Carolina A&T. It was not a student who was involved, according to police. It was not a student who was injured, according to police. But there was a shooting on campus, in the heart of campus. And the unfortunate part is that so many of these college campuses are so open and so accessible to anybody. I imagine when they built them, that was the idea, right?
The idea, that's
that
right.
they were open and accessible to people. And now it's kind of become an issue that campuses are so open to just anybody.
It's not a way you want to start the new school year, right? You're excited, you're ready to start school, you might have bought all your new school supplies and all that things of nature. It's just not a way you want to start. And we're going to now pass to Governor Roy Cooper, who did send out a statement. We're going to put that right here on your screen. Again, it says, "My office is in communication with law enforcement and officials at UNC-Chapel Hill who are taking precautions to protect campus safety following today's shooting. This is a tragic way to start a new semester, and the state will provide any assistance necessary to support the UNC community." Again, that's Governor Roy Cooper's tweet and statement that he did put out several minutes ago. But again, just like we're saying, very, very tough way to start the semester. Parents trying to stay in contact with their students as best as they can. You guys brought up the alert system, the best way to look out for any alerts if you have any questions or concerns. But ultimately trying to put your trust as well in the law enforcement. They have dozens of people out there. I don't know, again, if we maybe can put up that VO again of all the law enforcement there, but what we did see earlier was just tons of police cars out there.
I've also noticed that, and I don't know if you can really read into this or not, but when we saw that live shot coming from Chapel Hill, the students looked like they were pretty put together,
Pretty
right?
calm.
Pretty calm. So I'm wondering if law enforcement, at least on the inside, is telling them we think we're okay, but let's do, because they, we've seen video of students running out of buildings before with their hands up, and it doesn't look. It looks like the demeanor. Here we go. So this is previous. So
Video
not
from
live.
earlier. That's correct. Yeah, but Eric, just like you're saying, students did seem to be pretty calm. I mean, there's dozens of police cars out here on UNC's campus right now. Helicopters were up in the air. Excuse me, and this is from earlier as well too. But yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure police are doing the best they can to help calm students, because you want to make sure that your guard is up, but it also helps when you are remaining calm in times like this.
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking about just the students and how they are starting out this school year after all the things that they have gone through. Just taking a live look right now at the right side of your screen from our sister station there. Students leaving the area, and think about all of these students who have been through something similar to this: a school lockdown, a school evacuation. It is such a shame that they have to continue to go through these things. And, we see them acting fairly calm.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's because they're just so numb to this, because they see this and they've experienced it and they see it on TV, and it's happened on this campus and it's happened on this campus, and now it's here at Chapel Hill.
Well, and it's kind of the thing too, you think like, well, yeah, this happens, but the police have it. When you're young, you kind of go, everything's probably okay. So some of them may just be we're going to be all right. It just doesn't happen
Right.
here very often, but apparently it does.
And we've seen different schools, whether it was high school, college, unfortunately have different outcomes. And so it still is you want to make sure that you are on high alert, because you just never know, but you definitely want to hope for the best outcome here. Actually, I had a chance about the last week. I was around a few college students up in the Raleigh-Durham area, and I'm watching them do school supply shopping. They're really excited about the new school year. And this is, again, the last thing that you want to think to happen when you're about to start the first couple of weeks of school, especially.
This video you're looking at right now is from Noelle Harris, who was actually one of our interns this summer. Just went back to Chapel Hill 2 weeks ago, very excited about it. And now today, she had to send us video of her and her classmates sheltering in place in classrooms underneath their desks on the 6th day of school. Boy, I can't imagine what it's like for them.
And we don't have as much, I mean, they're tight-lipped, and they should be, authorities now, because they haven't released a whole lot about this except the basics of what's going on. But until that best investigation gets to a point when they can release something that matters, we will let you know as soon as possible. But until then, they got to make sure they have everything under control.
That's right. And again, you're looking at video right here behind us. This was taken from earlier. You can see a lot of the law enforcement who have responded to this shooting that has happened here on campus. Again, they say that this person is armed and dangerous. They have a person of interest to be on campus as last reported. And right now we don't know where this person is, if the person has fled on foot. Everyone is still working to learn information. This is a picture of that person that they said was armed and dangerous. This is a good look from him, again, person of interest on campus, as they continue to look for this person who, again, we don't know where he is or how far he is from campus at this time.
And police would not have released that if they weren't fairly sure that that's the person. So we'll have to keep you posted on that.
It's interesting to me too that they were so quick to release this photo. So obviously they know who this person is, but haven't released a name. We know who the photo is because you can see it, but they haven't released a name of this person. So I'm curious to find out the thinking behind that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they're saying, look for this guy, but we don't know anything else about him. Typically, when you release a person of interest, you include their name or maybe where they're from, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I mean, even what you said before, that they put out this picture so quick. I think in these types of instances, we're usually waiting just a good amount of time, whether it's short or long. But it's very, very interesting that they put this picture out so quickly in hopes that they want you guys to get a great look at this person, if you might have seen him or any of that nature. But it's definitely interesting that they put this picture out so quickly in hopes to get a name as well too as soon as possible. And
we're really just kind of waiting for any sort of inkling of information from UNC, the campus, UNC-Chapel Hill Police. Somebody. The only thing that we have heard has come from the governor.
Right.
And I don't know if that was intentional, that the governor put it in a tweet that there was a shooting on campus, but that really is the only piece of information that we have been able to get confirming a shooting. You're looking at a live picture on the right side of your screen now, showing just the immense police presence that doesn't seem to be letting up. Obviously, a lot of vehicles there, a lot of people walking away from this area. Eric, you were talking about just your familiarity with the area where at least police have their attention focused, the science area of campus.
Yeah, near UNC hospitals. For those of you that are familiar, there's Whitehead Dorm and the ROTC building are on either side of Columbia, I believe that is, which comes right off of Franklin Street. And then South Road takes you down toward the bell tower, and then eventually you can cut down that road to go to which cuts through toward the science building and the football stadium. So this is fairly near to, I'd say, the north end of the hospital and just west of the bell tower, which is a wooded area. I mean, they'll have to be on foot going through there. And you brought up the photo. That is interesting to me that they released that with no mention of the name, and it just says that this photo shows a person of interest in today's armed and dangerous person situation. If you see this person, keep your distance and call 911, and that was from UNC Police, so unusual there.
And we did have some triad ties as well too. Currently now, Brian James, who used to be the chief at Greensboro Police, who has now been named the chief over at UNC, who I know is definitely has his hands busy in regards to trying to locate this person and this suspect as well too.
And the shelter in place is still
active.
Yes.
Yeah. We haven't heard anything actually in a while. The last thing that UNC Police tweeted was 30 minutes ago. Really just an update saying stay in your sheltered place.
What does that sign say? I can't read that from here. That.
Caudle Laboratories.
Okay, so I know where that is. I was trying to figure out where they have set up, but that makes sense.
And I think everybody, including us in the media, are just waiting, and actively asking questions. The problem is, though, like you mentioned, I mean, the campus is so sprawling and with so many areas where somebody could, quote unquote, hide.
Yeah.
Think about having to clear all of both the open areas, but then also the campus buildings.
It's a lot.
I mean, you've got to go through, every single nook and cranny of every campus building to be able to give some sort of all clear, especially if you're still looking for someone. And
you're taking a live look as well now, and you can see students walking through some different pathways across the street, still greatly surrounded by a lot of law enforcement. I don't know if we also can maybe put back up the video that student Noel Harris sent as well to earlier. I wanted to mention again, that UNC did put out that alert warning students to go inside, avoid windows. Again, we talked about how calm students are outside, and they appear to be a little bit calm here inside, but still, you can't imagine the conversations that are probably going on amongst each other when you are in the middle of the unknown. Don't know where this person is. You're hoping to be on your phone to continue to look at the alerts that UNC will constantly provide, but just a devastating way to begin the school year there at UNC.
And just looking at the live pictures where we saw some of the students walking across the street embracing some of their fellow classmates, understandably emotional and crying, because this is a traumatic situation to have to go through. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old, and this is your campus is now the center of the national news cycle because of what has happened, and we still don't even know what has happened there. But a traumatic day for students. We have one of our reporters who is almost to campus. Nixon Norman is working to get to this area to get us more information. We're going to check in with her a little bit later. But just a really, really tough day on campus. And
I know exactly where they are now that the camera was panning around. So they're at the corner of South Road and Stone Center Drive, which is right at the bell tower. In fact, the way the camera is going now, straight up this street, right up there in the distance where you see those little motorcycles or scooters parked, that's toward the Student Union, which is the center of campus. The pit, as they call it, is just to the left of everything you're seeing here. That road we're looking down is South Road. Looks like it's a little confusing here, but we're looking east on South Road, and then they're at the corner where the bell tower is, which, by the way, is also Stadium Drive, which leads down to Keenan Stadium. So that is a major, in fact, arguably the center of campus. Really.
Yeah, and you can also, see they earlier just had law enforcement buddied up with some students as well too, because that's needed in times like this as well, because you just never know. So that was beautiful and great to see law enforcement walking some students, whether it's across the street to a car, somewhere safe, because again, you never know what can happen. You want to avoid windows, you want to go inside, you want to be as safe as possible as law enforcement try to locate this person involved in this situation here.
As we know, the campus activities basically have come to a halt today for the rest of the day. We don't know about tomorrow. I imagine that we're also anticipating some sort of news conference from UNC-Chapel Hill Police, the university, who's ever in charge of this investigation, to release some sort of information. Of course, we'll be sure to pass that along when we get it. But at this point, really the only confirmed information that we have has come from the governor's office saying that there was a shooting on on campus. We don't know anything about the suspect, who I can't even call him a suspect. It's a person of interest that we have been showing the picture of. We don't know anything about whether anybody had been shot, whether there were any injuries or anything more serious. So we're just kind of standing by waiting, because we know the importance of this story and this situation to our viewers here in the Triad, knowing that so many of us have close ties to campus.
And I anticipate the governor will probably say something else. He's a proud graduate of UNC and pulls no punches about that.
And let's bring up his statement, if we have it here on board, that he did send out a few minutes and multiple minutes ago. But there it is. He said, "My office is in communication with law enforcement and officials at UNC." And I'm reading ahead, but I'm going to read another statement that he did put out. He said, "I have spoken with Orange County Sheriff Blackwood and Deputy of Public Safety Secretary, and pledged that all state resources needed to capture the shooter and protect the UNC campus." So he put it out, that statement, a few minutes maybe ago, to just kind of continue to communicate with the people of North Carolina and community members and students and parents that are around UNC campus as well too.
Just within the last minute, UNC police did put another push out on social media. It is basically a copy and paste of their notice 37 minutes ago, which says that it's an update. Stay sheltered in place. All classes and events are canceled for the remainder of the day. So at this point, we know that this situation is still ongoing. We're going to go over to Tanya Rivera now, who has an update on the situation.
All right, so we know that we're talking about UNC-Chapel Hill, but there are all kinds of public schools that are all around that campus area as well. They were on lockdown as well, so you can imagine elementary, middle, high schools, all of their parents are wondering what's going on, because there is an active shooter situation and possibly someone on the run. So it just was put out from Chapel Hill Carborough Public Schools that the elementary and middle schools are just now starting to dismiss, because they had been on lockdown this entire time, waiting to see what was going on with all of that big police presence that was around UNC-Chapel Hill, but also all around all the public schools as well. The high schools, they say, are also going to dismiss starting at 4 o'clock. So not only on the UNC-Chapel Hill campus, but of course all over this entire area, as there are law enforcement and people coming from all over trying to assess the situation. Now, there's a lot of questions. I mean, we all have been talking about this for the last couple of minutes or so, about how we don't know how this started. We don't know why this started. We don't know the exact identity of the person or why they believe that this person may have done something like that. We're also looking to find out how many people were hurt, if at all. What is the situation with that? And then where is this person? There are several things being posted, of course, on all different social media sites that are saying that this person could be in custody. Of course, we're working to confirm all of that. We want you to make sure that when we tell you something, that actually that post actually does mean something. We have clarified it. We have given it context. We have made sure that it is correct. I know there's a lot of people out there who just want to make sure they get all the latest information possible. We are working on that for you, but we don't want you to be misled. So we are trying to clarify and find context for you. Guys?
Yeah,
I want to caution everybody too, exactly what Tanya's saying, because I'm looking through this. There are people that are saying so many people have been wounded, so many people, somebody's died. You cannot believe any of that until we get actual confirmation. So look at social media with a jaded eye, because you really have to be careful what you believe and what you share, because then you could be sharing false information and perpetuating an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's again put up the person of interest that police are looking for. We talked about earlier how quickly they put this photo out to the public to be alert, to be aware. Police say that this person is considered to be armed and dangerous. Is a person of interest on campus. This is the person that they are continuously looking for out there on campus. I mean, we saw dozens of law enforcement out there on UNC's campus, helicopters, Eric and Chad, that were up there in the air. So there is a lot of resources pouring into this campus to make sure students and parents and our students and teachers, professors, and folks around the community are safe at this time as they continue to shelter in place.
It's the beginning of the school year, right? I mean, think about just like on the high school level, so many school districts went back today. It's an exciting year. UNC went back last week. This is their 6th day of class on campus. And both of you went to school like myself. You know how exciting the first couple weeks are.
I mean, just like I said, I was down in this area last week. I'm just out there on vacation, and I'm running into a lot of students, whether they were at the Targets or the Walmarts, wherever the case may be, and they're getting school supplies. You know, they're getting different clothes and outfits and all of these different, anything a normal student would do when they're about to head into school. And so it's devastating, and it's sad to hear that yet another case of an incident like this is happening on our schools and on our campuses as well too.
Yeah, I have to think that to myself, I guess all we can do at this point, wow, that's a live image, and he had an assault rifle, it looked like. So they're combing the area. But for me, I'm thinking, these kids, they go there, like you said, with all the excitement of the next step in the journey. Even if you've been there a couple of years, it's still your chapter. Those 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is your next chapter. And for them to see this, all we can hope for right now is that no one was hurt or, God forbid, died. And at this point, they can get him into custody. I have a feeling it may be a while because of the way Chapel Hill is laid out. They used to call it the village of Chapel Hill instead of the town. It is a town, but they called it that because it had all the trees and it looked so there are lots of places that it will take them a while. It's not like a campus where it's buildings and a bunch of asphalt. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of trees and wooded areas around there.
And UNC Police, they put out another statement here about 6 minutes ago. Again, they said emergency updates, again, stay sheltered in place. All classes and events are canceled for the remainder of the day. We talked about Brian James, who used to be the Greensboro police chief, who is now the UNC police chief over there. Obviously, he's working diligently with the folks he works with in terms of trying to help find this suspect. It's important for students to shelter in place and to stay calm as possible as they can, but sometimes difficult to do that because you just never know what's going on. They're right now in the pool of the unknown, for sure.
And Eric, I'd like you to speak just on the perspective of a parent of a college student, specifically a freshman college student. As a parent, I would imagine sending your kid off on that first week of school is tough, and so to hear this, I can't imagine how difficult it adds to it.
So the freshman thing is a whole different idea, right? If your kid's so my twins are juniors at their respective schools. Not that makes this any easier, it does not. But from a parent standpoint, you just let them go to their next thing. It is hard on parents to let their kids go. I mean, it's just like you think about kindergartners, first time that they have been away from home even for a few hours. Now they're away from home for months on end. And you worry about things all the time, not, them paying attention in class, doing their studies right, not partying too much, the whole thing. And then something like this happens. And I worry as much for freshman kids as I do for their parents, because that's their first time also, right? The flip side of that is that, hey, this is the first time, this is my half step into independence where you're really away from home. And for this to happen in the beginning, mentally, from a mental health standpoint, is horrible for them. You don't want them to associate something like this with going to college. So I'm sure there'll be I feel sure the university will have lots of mental health outreach after this.
Yeah, you have been watching our continuing coverage today on a situation that's developing on the campus of UNC-Chapel Hill. This is the 4 to 5, and we are continuing our coverage of the situation where there is a shelter in place on campus for everybody who is there. There is an armed and dangerous person, according to police, that they are currently searching for. You see a live picture on the right side of your screen of an immense amount of law enforcement and first responders as students, and it looks like maybe some parents or staff members standing by, watching and waiting for something, for some sort of information. At this point, we don't have a lot of it. We only know from the governor's office that there has been a shooting on campus, and we do know that there is a person of interest that law enforcement is looking for. You see all sorts of students. We've seen them over the past 30, 45 45 minutes to an hour of students and others leaving campus in a fairly calm manner, considering what we've seen in other situations where people have been running from campus.
And what you're seeing there as well too is, I mean, just lots of law enforcement that can help bring a little bit of calmness to you as well too. I've seen some law enforcement walking alongside students and staff as well too, to navigate them and walk them to somewhere safe as they continue to investigate, as they continue to try and look for this person involved. We do have a picture as well too of the person of interest that they are looking for, that they consider to be armed and dangerous, and they want people to get a good look at this person in case maybe you have seen the person at all, to help with the investigation that is.
And it looks like Governor Cooper also tweeted out, he said, "I have spoken with Orange County Sheriff and Department of Public Safety Secretary, and have pledged all state resources needed to capture the shooter and protect the UNC campus."
And since we have been watching this live picture from WNCN in Raleigh, this is the largest amount of students that we have seen since we started this live broadcast. Really, before it was just a trickle, a couple of students here and there, but I mean, at this point, we're looking at dozens, maybe hundreds of students now filing off campus. I don't know if this means that, you know, there has been a new development, but I think this is a good sign that we are seeing a lot more students coming off of campus, and very calmly too.
And I'll bet you they're clearing building by building, and that's what's happening. You're seeing a mass of people that were in one building, and now they're off to the next, and there are a lot of buildings on that campus.
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that law enforcement faces. UNC, a lot like a lot of other campuses, sprawling and very open to the public. Think about having to go building by building, room by room, closet by closet, looking for anything to help their investigation.
I know that from the Smith Center where they play basketball, which is the southernmost area of campus, up to Franklin Street, which is kind of the north end, it's easily 2 to 3 miles. That's a lot of area to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know earlier that, just like you guys, you know, UNC did put out that alert on campus warning for students to go inside and avoid windows. So again, just like we're saying, just being able to see all of these students walking across the street, still surrounded by a lot of law enforcement, still trying to get somewhere safe.
And let's go over to Tanya Rivera now, who's taking a look at some of the campus updates.
All right, so this is one of the things that we're seeing, right? You're seeing all of those students kind of like flowing off certain buildings of campus. But then what you see on the UNC alert system, everything that they're posting, 314 was the last time we saw on this page that they said you still need to shelter in place until all clear. That was updated again around 345. I saw that on Twitter as well. So they are saying still shelter in place. And then you're wondering, all right, why are we seeing all these students, you know, streaming off of campus? Well, you know, campus police are trying to keep a hold of what's going on as best as possible. So they don't want other people in other parts of campus going out and about. So like they said, they are going building by building, room by room, letting people go when they can. That's why you're seeing the stream of kids going off campus. But the alert is showing, please do shelter in place. And that's the word that they really want to get around to people if they are in other places of the campus or other places around campus. I mean, there's neighborhoods all around there. There's pre-K, kindergarten, high school, middle schools, all right there. We did just hear from Chapel Hill schools that they are now starting to dismiss their students, which also gives another lending that maybe some of this is easing up.
Tanya, thank you. Let's go to Nixon Norman now. WFMY News 2's Nixon Norman, who's just arrived in Chapel Hill on campus. Nixon, do you have any new information for us?
Yeah, so I've been here for around 15 minutes, and all of what Tanya was saying is true. There have been hundreds of students walking past here and there from me. Now, again, although there's students all across the campus, it is a very quiet day on campus. And even though there are, again, tons of students, nobody's really laughing. It's one of those, again, quiet days on campus. We did see an ambulance go through here and an armored truck, a big Humvee kind of thing. Now, we are again on campus, and I do not have any updates right now, but the college did send out an alert at around 1 p.m. about shots being fired, and that armed person of interest is still being looked for here on UNC-Chapel Hill. Again, we are still seeing students come and go, but quiet day here on Chapel Hill.
Absolutely. Again, now here's another picture. Nixon, thank you so much. Just like Nixon was saying, there was a lot of different students coming outside of a building, still being navigated through with police and law enforcement that is heavily on campus. But yeah, just like Nixon said, you can imagine, very, very quiet, very, very quiet as people are continuing to try to get to another location that is safe so police can continue this investigation.
And just wanted to point out real quick, you saw a woman there waving at our camera.
Yeah.
So, we are taking a live feed from our sister station, which is WNCN in the Triangle area. And so that is actually one of their reporters getting ready to interview what looked like a student. So we are going to stand by and make sure that if we're able to see that interview take place, we're going to go to it. Yeah.
We'll let you know. It's a sad day for the UNC community. I mean, I can tell you firsthand, I'm a proud alumnus, and everybody. You hate to see this on any college campus, but when it's yours, it does give you a different feeling. The first thing I want to do is go down there. I know that's not the right thing to do. Don't do that, but it is what you feel like when you see something like this. You want to support the kids and the parents the best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we were saying earlier, this is not something that you want to go into and to start your first day, your first, second week of school, just any time during the school year at that as well too. Kids and students are supposed to be excited to look for supplies, get ready for the different classes that you might have enrolled in. And when things like this happen, it brings a lot of scary conversations in your head, especially amongst each other.
And while we're talking, this is back to our live picture on campus where we've seen just a lot of people here within the last 15 minutes. A lot of people streaming from some of the buildings, which I'm kind of taking as a good sign.
Yeah,
we hadn't seen anybody for a long time, just a trickle of people, mostly law enforcement. And then within the last 10 minutes, just a rush of students. They weren't running. They didn't have their hands above their heads. If anything, they were on their phones calling mom or dad, letting them know they're okay, and just getting to an area that is more safe than where they were. Again, no update from law enforcement, either UNC-Chapel Hill Police or UNC Police. We haven't heard anything more from the governor beyond that there was a shooting on campus. We are standing by waiting to hear anything from anybody confirming what has been going on campus the last couple of hours.
I've noticed that UNC Police, Chapel Hill Police, and the university, obviously they're in close contact with one another because they're posting the exact same things, right? They're trying to keep all that information and the stream of information controlled.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can imagine too, just being a student, you're on a large campus as well too. And I can imagine the relief that they do see when they're next to law enforcement in such close proximity and surrounded by them.
And see, I feel like a parent at UNC-Chapel Hill right now. I'm just constantly refreshing the pages from UNC-Chapel Hill, from the police, from Alert Carolina, just hoping for something. They're remaining tight-lipped, so to say, and probably for good reason. Where they're looking for someone, they're investigating a scene, and they want to make sure that they get all of their ducks in the row before they start releasing information. We've all been in parts of breaking news situations where information comes out, and then it's not accurate, and then they have to kind of put the genie back in the bottle, and it's a little late for that. So they're remaining tight-lipped, and for good reason.
I agree with you, Chad. I do think it's a really good sign that students seem so calm as they leave wherever they're coming from. And the fact that we've seen huge groups of kids, in my opinion, means that they're clearing building by building and are telling everybody you've got the all clear to leave.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And we have been shown a picture again of the person of interest that they are reportedly looking for. They have said that this person is considered to be armed and dangerous. Again, this is another look at the person that they are looking for. They want folks to continue to be on high alert. And Chad had brought up earlier today, you know, it was just so interesting that they put this picture out so quickly like they did, because when we're in these types of situations, sometimes when you're not the people on campus and you're the folks kind of watching TV, watching this all unfold, you're kind of like, who is this person? What does this person look like? Where could they be? And we got to tell you, as soon as we kind of heard about this this investigation, this situation happening at UNC, this picture came out quickly. I mean, quickly.
Very quickly. Like they just knew. They knew that this was the person that they were looking for. I would like to go back, if we can, to the video from inside one of the classrooms during this shelter-in-place situation. This is video taken by Noelle Harris, who was actually our intern over the summer. She was so excited to go back to school just a couple of weeks ago, and now it sounds like we are getting to that student who is being interviewed right now. Let's listen in.
We all kind of shut our laptops and we're trying to figure out what's going on. You know, maybe less than 10 minutes later, probably we heard, you know, commotion going on in the building. We didn't know what it was, just loud noise. And so we all very quickly jumped up out of our seats through the 3 rows of the class to get against the wall so that we weren't, you know, in plain sight.
When you saw the alert that said that there's an armed and dangerous person on campus and to shelter in place, what went through your mind?
It was kind of surreal. I mean, obviously it's a reality, unfortunately, that we deal with in this country, but you don't really think about it happening. And when it does, obviously, just thinking of people being safe, you know, I don't want it to be with other people, but, you know, hoping it wasn't with me. So, yeah, it was just surreal.
You know, the first alert went on about 3 hours ago. You've been locked inside of the building. You know, how were you feeling there? Tell me about the experience being locked inside that classroom.
You know, luckily my classmates, my professor, you know, everyone was pretty calm, so that helped. There wasn't really a sense of panic in the room per se about something happening to us. Obviously, just in general, there's, you know, kind of sadness, and obviously some people were very upset. But luckily I was with a good group, but, you know, not a fun situation to be in, especially not for several hours.
Now, what was the process of getting outside of the building and to, you know, where we are now in South Road?
The police came to the door. They just knocked, said police, showed a ID, escorted us out, you know, and said go to South Road. But, you know, there's many of them. They're holding, you know, rifles and weapons, which is not really an image you want to see when you're just trying to, you know, learn in a place we pay to be. You know, we're unsafe here. That, you know, wasn't a good feeling at all.
What do you feel about the response? From everyone we've spoken with, they said they were here in minutes. They felt better knowing that the police, I mean, it's a huge scene here. I mean, tell me about that.
Obviously, there wasn't really a sense of, you know, feeling good just because we're so close to the labs. You know, I'm sure obviously the police were doing as much as, you know, they could with the situation. But, I mean, really being in there, there's no sense of safety whatsoever. And that's, you know, not anybody's fault. It's just how it is, being so close by.
I'm sure you were on your phone, texting your parents, texting your family. I mean, what was that like? What were they saying to you?
Just to try to keep them updated. You know, obviously they're watching on the news. You know, it's hard to give people a sense of satisfaction about how you're doing in a situation like this that really shouldn't even be happening. So it's tough, but good to be able to talk to my friends and family.
And obviously we're okay, you're physically okay, but how are you doing with all of this?
I'm very angry. I'm, you know, a proponent of gun safety and gun control, and I think this just speaks to changes that need to be made because this is really unacceptable, you know, regardless of who perpetrated this. You know, something needs to be done so we can come to school safely. Luckily, you know, it's all adults here, so we can be a little more calm and stuff.
Sorry to interrupt during this interview with a student at UNC-Chapel Hill, but we have just learned from UNC police that the all clear has been given. the UNC Police and Alert Carolina have just put out on social media the all clear has been given. Representative John Hardister just minutes ago tweeting, "Our office is monitoring the situation at UNC very closely, and we are receiving updates from campus police, campus staff. Multiple law enforcement agencies are engaged and shelter in place continues. Suspect in custody. Officials will have more information ASAP." Again, that information is coming from Representative John Hardister, who represents us here in Guilford County. And so this is very good news.
Absolutely.
And then also from UNC Police about the all clear given.
What a relief, right? What a relief. And I know they're going to continue that investigation, but we told you our reporter Nixon Norman was heading out to UNC. She's on campus now, and she's believed to be speaking with a student. We'll toss to her now.
Yeah, I'm here with a junior Chapel Hill student. His name is Matthew, and he says he was in the library for most of the day. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Now, what were you feeling when you initially saw the alerts come out at around 1 p.m.? Mad, scared? What were some of those emotions running through your head?
Just a little confused, I guess. Second week of class, you don't really expect anything crazy to happen. I was on my way to a class, and it was just kind of weird to stop everything and have to wait for 2 hours.
Yeah, and it just being so close to you, so close to campus. Again, I'm sure that kind of shakes you up a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you'd think this place is normally pretty safe, so when you hit a scare like this, it's a little worrying.
And we were just hearing that all clear came through. People are walking around. It's starting to look like a normal campus again. Is that relieving to hear?
Yeah, no, definitely. Hearing that he's finally in custody, makes you feel a little more safer.
Yep. Well, this is Matthew again, Chapel Hill student, junior here at Chapel Hill. And again, he was not in the midst of it all. He was in the library, but he is very relieved. We're all relieved that the custody has been taken in and that we're in the all clear.
Nixon, thank you. I mean, just kind of hearing from the other student and then this student as well too. When you're first hearing about this, confused, what's going on, asking all sorts of questions. The other student that we heard from said as soon as they heard this, they jumped out of their seats quickly because students have been told and trained before what to do in situations just kind of like this. But we saw all the students there. We know that folks are resuming back on campus now that we have that latest update. But happy to know that this person has been taken into police custody.
And it's like second nature, unfortunately, for our students nowadays, that they know, well, what we do is we get under our desk and we stay away from windows and we stay where we are, shut the door and barricade it and wait to be told everything's okay. I mean, it's almost, we've been, 20 years of this mess going on at least. So thankfully, they did know what to do. And we'll get more reports, I'm sure, in the coming hours and days as to what exactly happened.
Right, and so now this situation shifts, right? So the all clear is over. They have a person of interest in custody. I imagine it won't be long before we hear from investigators, UNC-Chapel Hill Police, giving us some sort of information about what unfolded today, right? So the scary part is over, and now we wait to learn more.
Because we know there was a shooting. We don't know if someone was shot, if that person was shot, or what's their condition. Was anybody hit it? We didn't know none of that yet. We're waiting for all that confirmation.
Yeah, and this is another angle of students coming out from another direction. I saw students from the opposite direction, now students coming from another direction. I'm leaving and going to just another location, whether that's to another side of campus or off campus as well too. But we did just see even police kind of putting their guns away as well too. But it takes a team. There's a lot of law enforcement on campus trying to get a handle of this. There were helicopters up in the air and just a relief to know, just like the students were saying, that they have that person of interest in custody and things are going back as normal. But again, even though things are going back to normal, you're still going to see law enforcement on campus. So you see them in the midst of students. If they have questions, making sure that they navigate them to the location they're supposed to go to, because there's still a lot of them probably still shaken up as well too.
Yeah, and parents.
I just got a text from my friend that I mentioned his daughter's a freshman there, and said that he told me where she was holed up, and then now they've said everything's good, so they are breathing a sigh of relief. That's one of thousands of parents across our state and really across the country. UNC is a school that people come to from all over, and they're all feeling that sense of relief.
And then, as a parent, what kind of conversation do you have with your college kid? After they're not involved. Your kids don't go to UNC. Do you still have a conversation with them about what happened?
Yeah, I think you should. I think as parents we have to tell them look, this is a possibility. It's a reality, and the best thing you can do is what we've already talked about. Tell them what you need to do. As soon as you hear that, what is your first reaction depending on where you are? And I think that honestly, as parents, letting go of your child is hard enough. Things like this make it quadruply hard, inconceivable. You have to teach them almost like first responders. You know how we've heard police say so many times, your training kicks in. I've heard that a million times with police in situations. Your kids unfortunately have to have their training as well.
And having those conversations, I can imagine too, Eric, are just so important, because I'm sure, I mean, they're texting their parents back and forth, and they want to jump on the phone call with their parents, you know, as they should as well too, to let them know that they're safe. But to have those conversations with parents, I can imagine too, as this continues to unfold, we will also know that resources are going to be available to students right there for them as needed as well too.
Boy, it's extraordinary that we're looking at this live picture, and had we not known that this happened today, it just looks like another day on campus. And I don't know what that says. I'm not really sure what that, you know, how people portray that, but it's just extraordinary that it's like it's back to normal.
It's almost like in some cases, the kids, because they're so used to this, and those of us that didn't grow up with this,
right,
that they're, I'm not going to say desensitized, but I'm hoping that they can handle a little bit better. Like, we've seen this, we've heard about this, we know what to do, and now they've gotten the all clear and they're okay.
I remember years ago when schools started doing these active shooter training drills, and a lot of people were upset about it. A lot of parents understandably upset. Why are you putting my child through putting the idea in their head that someday this could happen? If anything, it's scaring them. Well, now, I mean, the way that we look at it now is like, this is necessary in any grade, that you have to go through this training. And I think today was a good example of, because it just could happen anywhere.
Well, and it's unnerving. I mean, my kids, my two youngest, when they both were in elementary, one's in middle, one in elementary now, and they go through that training, and they came home and they talked to us about it. Sometimes we would turn off video if it's on TV, if it's too violent, and because you want to have a controlled conversation with them. You don't want to scare them to death, but you also have to put your toe in the water of reality and say, you have to know what to do in this situation.
Right.
And so again, you know, police have a person in custody. This is a live look at what you're seeing now. Students are moving in a different direction. They're getting out of their classrooms, because earlier they did have to shelter in place. Things are back to normal, seem a little bit calmer as well too. And I just want to be able to put back on the video that we had from earlier today, if possible, of what it looked like in one of the classrooms at UNC. Just here it is right here. So we were talking about how folks had to shelter in place. You can see them ducking down, avoiding the window, maybe having conversations with each other as quietly as possible, or maybe not talking at all. But that was what it looked like in classrooms at UNC today. And so thankful to know, I'm sure his parents are happy to know as well too, that this person is finally in custody.
And it was the social media post heard around the world, right? All clear, resume normal activities. This came out from UNC Police as well as Carolina Alert. I think a lot of people very happy to see this tweet. We also saw a tweet from Representative John Hardister, who represents Guilford County, saying that a suspect is in custody, saying his office was working with law enforcement to see what they could provide from a lawmaker standpoint. Keep in mind, you know, the state capitol is just a few miles away in Raleigh. So a lot of people keeping their eye on the situation as it evolves today. We haven't heard yet beyond this social media post from the investigators. I imagine gosh, it has to be shortly that we'll get some sort of information, either through a news conference, a push on social media, but hopefully we'll be able to get some of our questions answered soon.
As quickly as that picture got posted, and as quickly as they have him in custody, which really it was fairly quick, I think you're right. I think that means information is like imminent.
Yeah, and we were talking about, parents and how students are contacting their parents and letting them know that they're okay. But you can also imagine, too, that students are also probably connecting with other students who they maybe have lived with or are friends with as well, too. Hopefully embracing each other of what a scary situation this was, and happy to now be reunited with dorm mates, friends, sorority sisters, fraternity brothers, whomever it is. You're just happy to see one another.
And Eric, can you talk more about the location of where they have the focus?
I wish that I knew where they took him into custody, because that's interesting to me. But what I had said earlier was that the live shots that we were seeing from there, I could tell where they were. And they were on South Road, which goes right through the heart of campus. In fact, only like a block or a half mile away from the old well, which is the symbol of the university, right? So that South Road takes you from Columbia on Franklin Street down, and take a left on South Road, takes you right to the bell tower, which is next to Keenan Stadium, the football stadium, which is a wooded area. And that's why when I heard that this might have happened, again, not confirmed, in the labs, which are near UNC Hospital System buildings, just to the north of that, then the logical thing that I think that he would have done would be to retreat into those wooded areas, because anywhere on campus you're going to be seen quickly.
And our Nixon Norman, she's on campus now with another student. Nixon?
Yep, that's right. I'm here with another student, Neha, who is a freshman here at Chapel Hill. Now tell me, you said you were barricading in a classroom. Can you just tell me how that went, what you saw, what you heard? And I'll hold this.
We finished class and we were supposed to be dismissed to our next class. We had about 20 minutes left of class when the alert went off, and it was entirely faculty and student led as to the next steps that we were to take. So we had students go up and barricade the doors. We had everybody settle down with the lights off, just awaiting news. We were told just about as much, as the public was, and any updates that we got was just word of mouth. So it was whatever we'd heard through group chats and such, and that was that.
Now, what was the emotion in the room? Were people scared, angry? I mean, what did you feel being in that barricaded room?
I think everyone was terrified, but as it progressed, I think a lot of people were getting restless, and we just wanted to be able to get out of the room. We sent our prayers to everybody who was hurt. We didn't really know exactly what's going on. I still don't entirely know what's going on until I get back to my dorm. I won't entirely know, but I do hope that everyone made it out okay.
Sure. And now that things are all relieved and the suspect is in custody, how are you feeling? Again, it's looking more like a normal day on campus here. What are you feeling now that it seems to be kind of calming down?
By no means this is a normal day. I'm so sorry. I hope that wasn't offensive, but this is not a normal day. We've gone about our classes. We will be getting back to our dorms. I know I'll hopefully be headed home soon. I don't live too far from here. And I know that any of my out-of-state friends will probably go with me because I don't think that the majority of us still feel safe. I completely understand that all precautions were taken, but I do think that the majority of us are looking to head off. And I know that a couple of other people from my class are heading at a minimum to off-campus locations, whether that be apartments or any off-campus safe place.
Again, you heard it here from Neha, a freshman at Chapel Hill, that although there are students walking around, this is not a normal day here on Chapel Hill. We'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, gosh, a perspective from a freshman who, again, we were talking about freshmen earlier. This is a time where they're excited. This is their first time on campus, a majority of them, that is. And, earlier she mentioned, too, that they were communicating through group chats as well. We talked about the alerts, but when you're in college, you're involved in a lot of different organizations and things of that nature. But them communicating through group chats, are you okay? Are you good? Where are you at? And things of that nature. And so just a very difficult day for all students, but as well as freshmen who their first time even on campus and in general.
I don't know if Nixon can still hear me, but I would say to walk through campus, because I guarantee you students are gathering together, they're looking for their friends, and they're trying to get in groups. to support each other. There'll probably be lots of hugging and some tears, and that's a that's a part of the process, right? To heal from all this, to get it out, and to be with people that you care about. And I guarantee you, those students are pulling together really tightly right now.
I'm curious to see in the days moving forward whether Carolina will cancel classes.
Yes.
You just heard that student say that she's like, I'm out of here. I'm getting off campus.
Don't feel safe
I'm
still.
bringing out-of-state students with me to my home, and we just need to be off campus. Who knows? I mean, are you going to cancel school? Are you going to go remote?
Yep.
What are you going to do, and for how long?
Well,
There's no good answer.
And today, classes and events canceled. You're right. They'll maybe even the rest of this week at least, just to kind of get things going. Plus, and we'll bring you all this information as we get it, guarantee you there's a mental health plan in place to help students deal with this, just like they have grief and trauma counselors for other events.
And our Nixon Norman is speaking with another student right there. Nixon, we'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, I'm here with Simran, another freshman at Chapel Hill, and she says she was actually in the area of interest when all of this was taking place. Tell me again what you went through, what was going on.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a freshman and we were all in the Genome Sciences building, which was the main area of interest during everything that was going on. And our lecture hall had close to 250 something students in it. And the alert went off on the presentation. We were asked to stay calm and the lecture continued. And then someone told us that they were right outside the Genome Sciences building, which was where we were at. And that is when everyone started freaking out. That is when we were told to take a decision by ourselves about what to do. A lot of us are 17, 18, 19, and it is horrible that we're just told what to do and make a decision for ourselves. Like, we're looking at the people of authority in class and no one knows what to do, which was horrible. And the only thing, me and a couple of my friends hid inside a closet. It was where they kept all the computer mainframe stuff at, and we barricaded the closet with a huge piece of metal door that was inside. And yeah, people were calling their parents, saying goodbye, saying I love you, and it is horrible. Just no one should have to be in a situation like this, especially shiny-eyed 18-year-olds. This is my first week at college and this is already happening, and honestly I don't know how to feel, because we're going to be walking through the same hallways tomorrow, day after tomorrow, when things go back to normal. And I don't know how we ever expected to feel safe, and knowing that things like that can happen at any moment.
Now, you said you guys had to make decisions for yourself. You had went into a closet. Other people were calling their parents. What were some of those other decisions that people were making to kind of handle this situation and go forth?
I think some people were hiding. So it's a huge lecture hall. People were hiding themselves between the layers of the chairs, hiding behind the stairs. It was great that our professor and TAs went and made sure all the doors were locked right off the bat. And yeah, I think people were just hopeless in the beginning. Everyone cornered themselves and held their backpack. I think the first people were crying, freaking out. Everyone was anxious because no one knows what to do in a situation like this. And the worst part was there was no plan put in place. We were just told that do what you think is right. And then the police told us stay put, stay where you're at. And we did. And yeah, it was crazy because we were listening to the broadcast and we heard the word Genome Sciences building several times. Bell Tower, which is maybe just a couple feet away from our building. And all of that was crazy to hear about. I still can't believe everything that happened today is real. And yeah.
And I know you said you don't know exactly how to feel, but I've spoke with other students who weren't as close as you were. If you could put words to it, how did you feel knowing that the suspect was right outside of the building that you were in, hiding in a closet?
I think in the beginning it was just fight or flight. I was numb. I didn't know what to do. Me and a couple other people ran to the closet, told people, hey, we need to hide. We cannot make noise right now. But there were some people that just instantly started crying, calling their parents. And it's really, in a situation as high stakes as this, young people, they don't know what to do. It is, you never know. after a little bit, I think it settled down, and that's when it really hit me. That's when I called my parents, my friends, and let them know that I'm safe. And they were looking at the news, giving me live updates, and I was trying to do the same for myself. Yeah.
And this is one of my last questions. What was the first thing you said to your parents when you got on the phone with them?
I think I started with "I'm safe and I love you."
Well, I'm so glad that you are okay, Simran, and thank you so much for sharing your story. We'll continue to be out here at Chapel Hill updating you, talking to more students, but for now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Nixon, thank you. And I mean, gosh, you heard her say how she reached out to her parents and said, you know, I'm safe, but I love you. And I think, gosh, just like you're saying, you know, you're a parent yourself too. And can you imagine getting a text like that from your student who is believed to be on campus, learning a few things, and you're probably sitting there like, you know, oh my gosh, you know, but she was in a class with 250 students, a lecture class, and it's just a frightening atmosphere that these students were in.
And
Eric.
that's a freshman class, right? Because when you first
Right.
go, you get those gigantic
100
classes.
classes, right?
Yes, yes. And I know those classes, and that would be a panicked feeling because where do I go?
Right.
I mean, you're in an auditorium basically, right? For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's a huge auditorium, and you're right there in the open. You know, do you get under those seats? Do you run to another room? She went to another room. That moment of her saying what she said to her parents choked me up because I can't imagine how moving that one line is. I'm safe and I love you. Like that's
Right.
all you care about as a parent. She's safe, and to hear that love.
And you could hear just the frustration when she said, "This is my first week on campus.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a freshman.
I'm 18 years old.
I'm 18 years old." Like, and unfortunately, this will be a defining moment in her college experience, right? I mean, I remember my first week of college.
Oh, absolutely.
It was fun and wild and freeing and liberating and
Yeah.
and awesome. And unfortunately for her, this will always be part of it.
And it's never the same when you see it on TV. I mean, these kids have grown up with this, right? So
Yeah.
they've seen it over and over. Never the same until you experience something like that.
I want to also add, Representative John Hardister he's been sharing information on social media. He said that it appears that the suspect is a graduate student, and the officials are planning to have a press conference at 5 p.m. So look at your clock now; it's 4:36, and so we're hoping. Now, granted, John Hardister is a representative; he's not the official source of information, but I'm hopeful that maybe he has more information than just we would. But Tanya, do you have an update on that?
Yeah, let's just show it to you really there live so that you can actually see that tweet that you were talking about. Just coming in saying lockdown lifted at UNC. We knew that part, which we're just glad to get it reconfirmed. Suspect in custody and appearing to be a graduate student. So a little bit more information trickling. And then officials are planning to have a press conference at 5 o'clock. So we're going to be learning a little bit more detail. We just saw an alert from UNC Alerts, and it was one of those ones that came in around 4:26. UNC all clear, which that was something we needed to confirm. Classes canceled remainder of the day. And then this little tidbit right here, avoid Caudle Labs. Now we had seen that in the video. We saw the students streaming out of that area with Caudle Labs there in the background. So we know that that is the source, the place that they are now keeping to look for all kinds of clues and things of that nature. So no one is allowed around that Caudle Lab. So that is where the whole scene is stemming from. And so we are going to be taking a closer look at that as we get that 5 o'clock news conference and we figure out what actually happened in Caudle Labs. I'm not sure if we have another source for this here, but you know, this is one of those things where this spilled out into the community. So, you know, while we're focusing on UNC-Chapel Hill, and rightly so, because that is where the supposed shooting happened and where the students were sheltering in place, there were students sheltering in place and people sheltering in place all around the UNC campus because there are neighborhoods there, there are schools there as well. Just think about this. Some kids going to school for the first day today, they were having their first day of kindergarten in Carborough Chapel Hill schools, and they are on lockdown their very first day and not being dismissed until many hours later. So this particular happening having a ripple effect really in the entire community, guys.
Every university, they say they have a family, right? So it's a thing with Carolina that we call it the Carolina family. Even former players, Caleb Love, who transferred away from Chapel Hill to play basketball elsewhere, said that he's sending my thoughts and prayers to everyone involved and affected at UNC. It reaches, and that's really, right, that oversteps academics and sports and all that. It's the bond that you feel with that place that you love, and it affects everybody. And that's any university that's gone through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just I don't know if we maybe can go back to our live scene out there as well too, but maybe we'll get to that in just a second. But we spoke to, you all heard a lot of students out there saying that they're relieved, they're calm. Students were exiting out of the buildings, going to a safe place. This is a time where folks are reuniting with people that they love. They're texting parents, they're texting people they love. They're reuniting with students that they know and making sure that they're okay. Folks that live in the same dorms together, because during these times and when you're in classrooms, you can be in different sides of the campus, and which is the scary part. And when you're a freshman, you might not even know a lot of people on campus at all. And so the folks that you're in a dorm with are people that you're trying to check up on and make sure. One of the students we heard from as well too said how they were communicating through group chats as well, which is really nice to hear that communication was going on, while also trying to make sure that you're alert and staying safe at the same time.
I'm looking through another friend of mine, I forgot that his son goes to Chapel Hill, said they evacuated 20 minutes ago, he seems okay. One of the other things I think of is the fact that they're saying stay away from Caudle Labs. They're not finished with an investigation for something. Right. So it makes us wonder what happened. We don't know this yet. We know there was a shooting. We don't know if someone was shot, or are they alive, or they're not. But that the fact that they're telling you to remain away from there means they've got some work to do there for some reason.
Which is why law enforcement are going to be out there on campus for who knows how long. Just because there is a person of interest in custody doesn't mean that police are going to hang it up and leave campus. There's still a lot of work to be done, and so that's why they're clearing students kind of to move them to another safe location as they can continue this investigation, because there's still a lot of questions to be answered with this situation that took place today on UNC's campus.
And we'd show you a live picture, but we've actually moved our team over to the Carolina Inn, because at 5 o'clock, police are going to be giving us an update. Hopefully they'll be able to shed some more light on what happened here today, whether they're able to tell us about any injuries. But at 5 o'clock, we are expecting a news conference. So at the top of the hour, just to find out anything more about what has occurred on campus today.
That's right.
And that is literally around the corner, like maybe 20 yards from where we saw the camera set up earlier, so not far.
Yeah, and we'll continue to get updates as well too. But again, we showed you earlier, students are out, they're going to different new locations. Folks are remaining calm. UNC police and leaders have given the all clear. We can take this video of what we saw earlier today in one of the classrooms that Noel Harris, our intern here at WFMY News 2 sent us. You could see earlier today, again, this is earlier, of students that are taking shelter, ducking down because they did not know what was going on. They were in a calm spirit, but still, probably having conversations with each other, trying to either calm each other down, maybe kind of freaking out in terms of what is going on. But this was earlier today, shot from inside of one of the classrooms, and that was probably, of course, happening in multiple classrooms across campus today. But students, again, have been giving the all clear. If you're just joining us today here from UNC, that there was reports of a shooting on campus. Folks and leaders and officials have put out on campus that they were looking for a person of interest who is now again in custody at this time.
The first day we had heard about the situation, at least that there was a shooting, was Governor Cooper tweeting just around 3 o'clock this afternoon, so about an hour and 45 minutes ago, that there was a shooting on campus. He said that his office was in communication with law enforcement and officials at UNC-Chapel Hill who were taking precautions to protect campus safety. This is probably the most obvious sentence in the social media post.
Sure.
This is a tragic way to start a new semester, and the state will provide any assistance necessary to support the UNC community. Representative John Hardister, who represents Guilford County, has a big presence in the Triangle at the state capitol, saying that his office is monitoring the situation at UNC very closely, and they're receiving updates from campus staff. says that multiple law enforcement agencies are engaged, and they will have more updates ASAP, which we have learned will come at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock when we're supposed to be hearing from law enforcement during a news conference to give us some new information.
Yeah, we talked about how there was just a lot of quick efforts in regards to getting the photo out of the person who at time was a person of interest and who they were looking for. I mean, it was just a lot of quick actions that was taking place in regards to UNC police and leaders there. Chad just read to you a statement that came from Governor Cooper that sent that statement out as soon as things were going on. So leaders were making sure that folks were understanding and knowing what's going on, not just students and professors and staff members on campus, but our Tanya was talking about how a lot of folks were on high alert when we're talking about nearby high schools, nearby middle schools. So there were a lot of communication going on when folks were asking questions amongst themselves in regards to what is going on, what is happening here as this continued to unfold earlier today.
And I have to say, when we see this, we see this frequently. I hate to say that, but we do. And in their defense, that was a quick resolution for what we saw today. In order to get someone in custody, the suspect, and issue the all clear was what, maybe a 3-hour process? And for a campus that big, for them to come down on that and take care of it that quickly, we have to say thank goodness, because who knows what would have happened if this person was still on the run.
I'm curious to see how the next level of this conversation proceeds regarding open college campuses, because we saw it last Friday. There was a shooting at North Carolina A&T here in Greensboro. It wasn't a student who was shot, according to law enforcement. It was not a student who shot someone, according to law enforcement. So there were two people who don't have anything to do with campus who came on campus and committed this crime of sorts. UNC-Chapel Hill, a lot like a lot of other universities, very open and sprawling campus. There are not any fences, right? There are not any walls. I mean, anybody can walk onto campus. We've seen it at schools in Michigan. We've seen it all over the place. What are universities to do with these open college campuses?
Well, also think of 2 weeks from now, or a little less than that, they got their first football game.
Right.
And that's, 20-something thousand people out in the open. And for those students, that may be a little tough.
It is next Saturday. I'm planning to be there
because it's Appalachian, isn't
App
it?
State is playing there. How do you move forward from this in a constructive way to figure out how to keep the most people safe the best way that you know how? I mean, you can't put up a fence around UNC-Chapel Hill. It's just not possible. So, I mean, what do you do?
So look at just your screen right here and the amount of police presence that responded to the incident here at UNC. I mean, a lot of hands on deck with this. You see police officers, we saw dogs, we saw helicopters up in the air trying to navigate and look and find this person of interest that they were searching for, and that they quickly put out a picture of the person super quickly. Again, this is previous video of what we were seeing and how this story was unfolding when we did not have a lot of answers at all. Students walking out in a calm manner, and police navigating and walking students from location to location to get to a safe place as soon as they could as well too. Also, our Hannah Jeffrey, she's getting to a location to where they're going to have a press conference at 5 o'clock, and she sent a picture to our newsroom and we'll get that picture so you guys can see that later here soon, is that there were a lot of traffic out there outside of UNC Chapel Hill. Of course, is to be expected, as even though this person of interest is in custody now, it's still a lot of folks obviously trying to get off of campus and maybe go home. College campuses, some people aren't even living in in North Carolina, so they're probably having to go to a location with a friend of some sort, but a lot of traffic of folks trying to get away from campus as quickly as they can.
Yeah, there will be police presence there well into the evening tonight. I mean, for sure, because that investigation is not over the way we see it.
Yeah, that's right.
Tough day.
Yeah. That's not the way. I just hate, you don't want it to ever happen, but I do feel sorry for the freshmen.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, that is the peak really after your freshman year. You kind of get settled. The excitement is still there, but it comes down to a normal level. This is like for a lot of them, their dream to go to this school.
And independence as well.
Yes.
This is their first time. You're kind of by yourself. Just like I said, while some freshmen might be living in the state of North Carolina, a lot of freshmen probably aren't. They could be on the other side, their families could be way on the other side of the United States, of the country. So again, just like you're saying, Eric, it is an exciting time for freshmen, and it's just sad of another instance of a shooting happening on a college campus.
I want people to know that there's not but so much you can do. And you have to, because police presence is there. I mean, I'm telling you as a former student, Chapel Hill police are everywhere. University police, they're all over the place. They know what they have to do. I know they've been trained in these type situations. So I feel like, and again, I think it was a quick resolution. I kind of take my hat off to them. I think they took care of it pretty quickly. There's not so much you can do. Living in fear is the worst thing you can do. You can't do that. You have to go straight forward with life, deal with situations, and move on. And I think we've all been prepared as best we can. You're never really prepared for that, but emotionally, say that. But I think from a standpoint of students knowing what to do and that kind of training starts to kick in, I do think it makes a difference that our kids are starting to understand it better and maybe can deal with it a little bit better than, say, 20 years ago when it was more new.
We have some new pictures coming from one of our reporters who's out there. Hannah Jeffries just arrived on scene. We will be having team coverage tonight, but it shows just the mass exodus from campus today. I mean, think about the amount of people who go to school there, staff members, faculty, whose parents have said, get home, come home now. Just a lot of people I mean, that campus is going to be pretty bare by the end of the day as people get out of there and just try to get somewhere where they might feel a little bit more safe.
And you can imagine the conversations that are probably taking place in those cars as well, too. I mean, where were you on campus? What happened? How were you feeling? What was going on? And just a time to really, have the conversations with parents or loved ones to really just kind of unfold everything that happened. But you talked about too, Eric, from your perspective of making sure that you do have a conversation with your students, because they're gonna need somebody to talk to when something like this happens on campus.
And there's also the argument that right now is probably the safest time to be on that campus, right? Because the
with all the
police
law
are
enforcement
everywhere, right now. So it's just interesting how, but you do have to have that conversation as a parent, or you are amiss if you don't prepare your student.
And knowing that your boys are in school, I imagine they have plenty of friends that go to UNC-Chapel Hill. I mean, so even for kids who go to other schools, they know people who go there. I mean, it is the state university, right? Like, so there are a lot of families connected, a lot of friend groups connected to people on campus. So, I mean, the impact is far-reaching across our state, our region of the country.
One of my kids, one of his good friends in high school goes to Chapel Hill. He's a junior, and he told me that everybody was snapping. So it was Snapchat, that they were like back and forth trying to find out, is everybody okay? So, and that's his preferred method because it's so fast. And those chat groups we talked about, like regular chat groups, that's what's happening right now.
So sorry that you're the only person with a parent here, so we keep directing our questions toward you, but for someone who has younger kids that aren't in college, they're gonna see this, they're gonna hear about it. Do you talk to them about what happened?
You absolutely do. This is my opinion, right? But yeah, you have to, because they're going to take that next step too, right? They're going to be there. In any college, there's that threat. I mean, we hate that, but it's there. So you're not a good parent, in my opinion, if you're not preparing the kids for a possibility. We have tornado drills. We hate that.
Right.
Nobody wants that to happen, but there's always that possibility. To me, it's the same thing. Fire drills, tornado drills, and unfortunately, my 13 and 10-year-old know the term active shooter. I hate that, but if you're not having those conversations with them, you're making a mistake.
Do you know how early they start active shooter training?
I don't know. I know in elementary school they do have drills. And I'm assuming it's the whole school. I don't know how you handle, like kindergarten, first grade is kind of a different thing, so I'm not sure how that works. I don't remember if they did it that young or not, but you really need to start. I mean, that 7-8-year-old kid needs to know what to do just like a 12-year-old.
I'm curious whether there will be any policy changes at the college level. We heard one of the students telling Nixon Norman that there wasn't really a policy in place for their shelter in place. It sounds like, according to this student, the professor said, do what you think is best. And I mean, I don't know if colleges have active shooter trainings.
I guarantee, no, I shouldn't say guarantee. I would think my logic says somewhere in some publication that you got as a freshman or or any year that there's something about active shooter situations.
Right.
Now, when that really how many of you read that? Right. You get those big student handbooks. You usually don't. I mean, I think most people don't read the whole thing. I think something's probably there. Don't think it was probably the best choice of words for that teacher or that professor to say, do whatever you feel is best. Maybe the staff needs more training, because they're the direct conduit with the students. But I feel like there's got to be something somewhere. Now, again, nobody reads a lot of that stuff.
Well, and I think in this day and age, these kids have gone through so much leading up to college that they already know what to do. I mean, it's a different situation because you're at college and you might be in a class with 100 kids, but it's the same idea.
But it might be a legal thing that universities have to put something out, at least to say, we gave this to you at the beginning of the year. But that's a tough situation.
And it's one thing as well, too, to be in a classroom where it's just 10 or 11 or 15 or 20. It's another thing if you're in a class with nearly 200 or up to 250 students, which, again, it's usually standard for freshmen to be in classrooms where it's a lot of folks in there. And when they come over the intercom or you're getting alerts that something is going on in a building that you're in or near, that is just something that's very, exactly. And you never know how different students might react. And so that's why I say you just never know when it comes to 200 or so folks in one classroom at the same time.
That is, maybe they need, well, not maybe, they need to address that because that's an open room, right? There's nowhere to go. I mean, you're
very vulnerable.
Yeah, you're in a giant, basically almost like a mini theater. Those rooms are that big. I remember, like you said, if you're in a small classroom, you barricade the door, get under the desk, stay away from windows. That's kind of the common thing. But when you're in a giant auditorium, there are no desks. You can get down in the rows, but you're locked into one area. It's not safe. I mean, and that's difficult because I think that student, didn't she say she left the classroom and went to like a closet and hid, which was really a smart idea.
If you're just joining us, we are standing by waiting for a live news conference that we anticipate will be taking place at the top of the hour in just a couple of minutes. UNC-Chapel Hill police, I imagine, will be taking the lead on this. We saw all sorts of law enforcement out on campus today during this search for an armed and dangerous person. The governor's office says there was some sort of shooting, but basically that's all that we know. We do know the all clear has been lifted. We do know that a person of interest is in custody, but beyond that, we don't know much more. So we are anticipating a news conference at the Carolina Inn at the top of the hour. So that's kind of what we are waiting on to provide more information to you.
They're about 3 minutes away, hopefully, if they start on time. Sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and at this time, we showed you a picture our Hannah Jeffrey sent you as well, too, of kind of what's going on now as folks, leaving campus, getting to somewhere, another location that is safe, whether that might be home for some, whether it might be going to another student's home because this might not be their specific home at UNC or here at North Carolina, or just an apartment complex of some sort as well, too, but still getting to another location off campus as they still unfold this entire investigation as well.
Something interesting, so UNC Hospitals just shared a notice, and it says UNC Hospitals in Chapel Hill has not received any patients from the active shooter situation on campus.
Okay.
We are actually, let's go to it quickly, an interview. This is with apparently a teacher there.
It's actually going to be the first day of class that we had. We didn't meet last week, and so then, I was kind of getting on my way to class, just kind of next door, and then all of a sudden we started hearing the alarms, the sirens go off. That basically just said, shelter in place, and but we didn't know where. We didn't know which building we were supposed to avoid. We didn't know where this had happened. The initial text just said, shooter potentially on or near campus. We didn't even know if it was on campus. We didn't have really any information.
Meanwhile, it was right next door.
And it was next door, and so thankfully I had no students at the class because I was coming there to prepare early. But it was just one of those things. So you close the doors, you lock the doors, you turn down the curtains, you block the door. We put some paper up on the door so there's no window access, and and you just kind of stay silent. You just stay quiet.
What did you think when you realized how close this was to you?
It just kind of puts things into perspective a little bit. This is actually the second kind of time that I've been on a university campus where something like this has happened. The first time was about a year ago. I was actually in University of Arizona, and we had a former student who was mentally unstable and sought revenge on a professor and ended up shooting and killing the professor. And it's just kind of weird because I'm in academia. I'm in here to mentor, teach the next generation, and then you don't really think about safety necessarily, and then when you do, it's put into the forefront, and then you start thinking, okay, how do I start protecting others? What do I do? But I wouldn't change anything. I'd still do it.
But here we go, two schools,
Yeah.
a year apart, and two professors or two teachers murdered by students. That has to be hard to swallow, considering that's not part of the profession you chose when you chose it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it's becoming ever more present and frequent. But you try not to think about it. You try not to focus on it. And I mean, I think. I can't speculate into the history behind these students and their interactions, but just try to create a classroom where it is the most safe and most nurturing that we can, and that's kind of my job.
Were you disappointed in the way UNC handled this alert?
A little bit, yeah. There's some frustration. Like I said, we didn't know any area, we didn't know any building, we didn't know any floor, classroom. The only reason for this frustration is I don't know what standard protocol here is, but when a similar event happened at University of Arizona, we knew which building, we knew which part of campus, we knew what had happened instantly, and we were getting constant updates. I mean, we had to check here through Twitter, and the news was giving us way more information than University of North Carolina did. We were just basically told stay in place, and we weren't told if that was a safe place or a good place. So I think there was definitely work there, but obviously they kept the students safe. I mean, there was a great response in terms of getting students out of there. Police officers came to the rooms, or at least my room and stuff like that, and they evacuated us out of there and made sure we were safe and out of the building. But the lack of information was definitely frustrating to know how to respond.
You are watching WFMY News 2 at 5 o'clock. Our continuing coverage of a shooting investigation on the campus of UNC-Chapel Hill. We were just listening to an interview with a professor at UNC sharing information, his perspective as the situation unfolded today, and some disappointment to hear from him about the way that it was handled.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of hearing from this professor as well, too, he said that this was the second time that this has happened in his educational career. I can't remember the location he said he was at. I believe it was in the state of Arizona, I believe is what he said. Yeah. Okay. This probably brought back all of those memories again. Hopefully, he said that he kind of knew, close the door, stay silent, turn off let the curtains down to create a more darker atmosphere. But just devastating to hear that this was a second time that this professor has gone through a situation like this on another campus.
It was hard for me too, as a graduate, to hear as he was talking about an active shooter situation. The bell tower was playing "Hark the Sound" in the background, which is the alma mater of the university. So that was chilling. Sobering right there. All right, so let's take a break for a minute. We need to check in with our Tim Buckley and see what's happening with our forecast.
Thanks, guys, for your coverage. We are continuing, as always, to kind of monitor the weather, too, which has become a bit of a chatter. We have tropics to talk about, but we also have some local weather to talk about. There have been a couple of downpours throughout the area. I was just watching one in Burlington a little bit ago. Our radar has been tracking this through the afternoon, so we'll show you a couple of areas. We do have some showers and storms back here over the North Carolina mountains. Want to zoom into Alamance County, though. This is where we did see a little bit of a downpour, kind of fizzling now, but it's pushing over toward Graham and and Haw River. You'll get like a little sprinkling in Mebane pretty shortly. A new downpour does appear to be forming over here in Guilford County near McLeansville. If you widen out the view, scattered downpours are still happening in parts of the Triad, but we do see some more of this over in the foothills. So over the next couple of hours this evening, more downpours are possible, and it's not this case where everyone gets rain, but if you do, it's going to be hard rain, that tropical style of rainfall. There's a low chance of a damaging wind gust this evening, not super likely. I want to walk you through Futurecast over the next couple of hours, but also a couple of days. You can see as we pause it here tomorrow afternoon, it's kind of the same kind of a day. A lot of cloud cover. A couple downpours could form from time to time. Not everybody gets one, but they're around. Same idea for Wednesday morning. Now at this point, the hurricane expected, Idalia, will be down by Florida. Once we get into Wednesday afternoon, we can start to see some outer rain bands getting into North Carolina. On the current storm path, notice how most of that rainfall is confined to southeast North Carolina and South Carolina. We're on the edge. And that's kind of where we sit right now. We see rapid clearing by Thursday. That's the most likely case with that storm, that we're kind of right on the outer edges. We get breezy weather, we get occasional rain, but not the big stuff like they do down east. So that's what's coming up later on in the week. For tomorrow, it's just like today, an occasional downpour is possible. This is the latest on the storm. Fresh numbers as of 5 o'clock. I was expecting they would find it to be at hurricane strength, but it is still 4 miles per hour shy of that. Remember, a hurricane starts at 74 miles per hour. Right now it's at 70. We have two storms. That's Idalia, that's Frankie, there's Florida. This one's going to be curving up into them. Franklin is going to be curving out to sea as we see it over the next day or two. This is the fresh track, hot off the press at 5 o'clock. They are forecasting Idalia to be a Category 3 hurricane, not too far from the coast of Florida by Wednesday morning, then coming ashore by Wednesday midday right here. They call this the Big Bend area. It's between the Panhandle and Tampa Bay. That middle area is where it's expected to hit directly and then kind of cruise along the Carolina coast, places like Charleston, Wilmington, Myrtle. They're going to get some impacts from this. So where we are, we would consider this to be just the fringe. That lighter shade of red there just indicating a little bit of rain, but at the coastal areas, you're actually feeling some tropical storm conditions. The way that this setup is working, you have a cold front that's going to be steering it. So once Idalia gets to Georgia, it's pushing it away. So notice how it tracks more to the east as we get to that point. So your 7-day forecast looks like this. Scattered downpours through tomorrow, through Wednesday. The storm will be at its closest for us Wednesday night and Thursday. We could see some gusts of 20 to 30 miles per hour and a little bit of rain. That's what we're expecting right now.
Tim, thank you so much for that weather update. If you're just now joining us here at 5, we have been on the air for quite a minute now, continuing to follow a shooting incident that took place over at UNC-Chapel Hill. What we know basically so far is that right now, currently, that there was a suspect that was outside of the campus. Folks were trying to look and police were trying to continue to investigate kind of where he was. Students were asked to be on alert inside, to shelter in place, to avoid the windows at that time as they continue to investigate and locate where that suspect was. And now we know that that person of interest has now been placed in custody. Students are continuing now to avoid the area where they were earlier today. This is a picture that we got earlier from the person of interest. Again, we do not know if this is the suspect that is in custody, but this was the picture of the person that they were searching for earlier today. Campus police, the governor had sent out statements as well too, kind of continuing to talk about it as this investigation unfolded as well. Also here on your screen, this is a presser that is going to be taking place here sometime soon. We have crews there now that will help provide us an update, and this will be the first time that we've actually heard from officials live since this incident has taken place. But again, we have been going on since about 3 o'clock, but UNC had put out a release and a statement that there was a shooting incident over at UNC-Chapel Hill, and that students were to go inside and to be on campus and to shelter in place.
And that press conference, by the way, is at the Carolina Inn, which is also on the campus of UNC. It's an old, storied, historic hotel in the middle of campus.
And we should be getting an update on so many things. Sydney, you covered the bare facts that we know at this point. I mean, we don't know much. We don't know anything about whether anybody was actually shot. We don't know where this happened, although we do know that they had their focus on the Caudle Labs, which, Eric, you say is the science area of campus.
Near UNC hospitals, around the corner too from the bell tower and the football stadium. So it's kind of in the heart of campus.
And keep in mind, this is all happening on the 6th day of classes for UNC-Chapel Hill. You know, you got to feel for these kids that are their first week of school, basically the first week of school, dealing with this situation. Over the past hour, we've heard from a couple of students. We have some reporters on the scene right now. We've heard from a couple of students who are just, you know, they're visibly frustrated, scared, and just, you know, can't believe that something like this has happened here. They say they see it on campuses across the country, but it happened on theirs today.
Yeah.
And they are still investigating at Caudle Labs, by the way, so that is kind of off limits. I mean, we're seeing some police tape here because that investigation is still ongoing.
Yeah, and this is, so again, it's, a live look. You can see the tape, and this is right now a much more calmer scene there at UNC-Chapel Hill. Earlier today, I don't know if we maybe can kind of bring up some of that video, but we saw law enforcement surrounding many parts in different areas of campus. A lot of law enforcement responded to this as well too, and just before there was a window, it looked like as if there was a bullet hole as well too. But again, this is a live look of the scene, and they're pointing up to the sky. I'm not, maybe it might be a helicopter or something, but it seems like they're resetting.
Yeah, let's say why, because that's our sister TV station. We can't control that camera. They're probably taking video, rolling and recording video and getting different shots. But that window, again, that's not confirmed, but it sure did look like there was a bullet hole in that window. Pretty sure that is Caudle Labs. Now, you said the hospitals said something.
Yeah, so UNC Hospitals in Chapel Hill, which is like the big hospital there, actually sent out a statement earlier saying that they have not received any patients from the active shooter situation on campus. They said we were on lockdown as a precaution for a few hours. We closed our outpatient clinics on the campus for the rest of the day. UNC Hospitals in Chapel Hill issued an all clear as of 4 p.m., which means we have lifted our lockdown and resumed normal operations, which I think is a great sign.
It is.
Considering you would think if there were multiple wounded people that this hospital would be one of the first places they would go.
Well, and you know, when we saw the wide shot at the very beginning with our sister station's camera, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a UNC Hospitals ambulance in that shot. No lights on, not in a hurry, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
kind of there on standby.
Yeah, they have the light blue and white striped ambulances. So it's there's that window shot.
Yeah, so this is the picture from our sister station WNCN in the Triangle, and it is clear to see that there appears to be a bullet hole here. Now keep in mind, so this camera we have no control over, right? So they're going to be continually moving around and getting different shots and zooming and focusing and moving the camera. So that's why this looks very out of sorts at some point, because they're gathering shots. You're really getting a live, behind-the-scenes look at what photographers do to capture video elements during any sort of story. And so it is clear to see that this is some sort of bullet hole. Whether it's been there or whether this is something new today, we'll certainly learn more about as we await this news conference that is supposed to be taking place any moment now. We were told that at the top of the hour we would be hearing from law enforcement. Oftentimes in these situations, you give a goal, a deadline for when you want to speak, and once you are able to get all your ducks in a row, that's when you speak, and oftentimes that can be delayed. So that's kind of what we're waiting on right here. Something else that's very interesting to me, and we see this other times too, NC State released a statement moments ago, and it says, "Our thoughts are with UNC-Chapel Hill in this difficult time. Counselors are available for anyone in the Wolfpack community who would like to speak with someone." I think that's great to see. You know, these two schools, very big rivals when it comes to sports, oftentimes academics as well, but we see in situations like this where those things don't matter anymore. And this is about one human family.
And that's NC State is part of the state system, right? Just because they don't have a UNC in front of it doesn't matter. State, you know, Appalachian, UNC Wilmington, I'm sure we'll see statements from all the other within that system and other universities, and for that matter, GTCC and some of our community colleges will offer support as well.
Yeah, I mean, mental health resources are going to be a huge deal, you know, as this continues to unfold. A lot of folks still asking questions. Many are still shaken up. We talked about how freshmen, this is still their first time ever, you know, on campus for many. So a lot of folks are going to be seeking help. And so it's nice to see that, you know, they are also making those available as well, too, from another campus perspective for those students and staff, too.
Shortly ago, we spoke with a freshman at UNC, and she says that she was near the area where this happened. Let's take a listen to how she described it.
Our lecture hall had close to 250 something students in it, and the alert went off on the presentation. We were asked to stay calm, and the lecture continued. And then someone told us that they were right outside the Genome Sciences building, which was where we were at. And that is when everyone started freaking out. That is when we were told to take a decision by ourselves about what to do. A lot of us are 17, 18, 19, and it is horrible that we're just told what to do and make a decision for ourselves. Like, we're looking at the people of authority in class and no one knows what to do, which was horrible. And the only thing, me and a couple of my friends hid inside a closet. It was where they kept all the computer mainframe stuff at, and we barricaded the closet with a huge piece of metal door that was inside. And yeah, people were calling their parents, saying goodbye, saying I love you, and it is horrible. Just no one should have to be in a situation like this, especially shiny-eyed 18-year-olds. This is my first week at college, and this is already happening. And honestly, I don't know how to feel, because we're going to be walking through the same hallways tomorrow, day after tomorrow, when things go back to normal. And I don't know how we ever expected to feel safe, and knowing that things like that can happen at any moment.
It's just definitely not a situation that many students, obviously all students and staff, hope to not be in. And this is a freshman you just heard. I believe this was the freshman that was in the class that had around about 250 students in as well too, texting parents, making sure, letting them know that they're okay. And you never know how a lot of those conversations kind of went with parents, but this was from her perspective as well too. But it was just a scary situation that the students had to go through, and to be able to walk out and see so many different law enforcement taking place out there right outside of their classrooms as well too. But you know, again, we are waiting for an updated conference. This will probably be the first time that we'll be able to hear from officials on camera. And so they did say that would start around this 5 o'clock area, and we do have crews there as we stand by to get another update, because again, we don't know too much as to what exactly took place there at UNC.
Well, and it's not just a statewide story, this is a national story. If you remember, Congresswoman Gabby Giffords put a statement out and said, my heart aches for students at UNC-Chapel Hill and the nearby schools that had to go on lockdown. This generation lives with a threat of gun violence every day. Half of all young people report thinking about a mass shooting every week. I mean, that's a bold statement right there.
Well, also UNC Greensboro put on social media just a few minutes ago too that the Spartan family extends our condolences to our colleagues and classmates at UNC-Chapel Hill. Counselors from UNCG Student Health Services are available to any student who would like to speak to someone. If you have been impacted by this incident, please contact counseling. We're continuing to get this live picture here on campus from our camera, and outside of the few law enforcement vehicles still present, almost looks like a normal day on campus if you're just looking at this picture. Nowhere near the amount of law enforcement vehicles we saw, just 1-2 hours ago, but plenty of law enforcement presence as they continue to investigate what happened there today.
Well, and they have to keep that presence up, in my opinion, because this is one person they have in custody. We don't know, was there anybody else? I mean, we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what the background is on this particular person. Again, they're innocent until proven guilty, but they are in custody. I'm sure they're doing a lot of research, and they have told everyone to stay away from those labs because they still have work to do there. We don't know whether someone was injured or not. hopefully we'll find that out in minutes, I'm thinking, from now.
Yeah, just such a different comparison. When you talk about earlier, obviously, just a whole bunch of law enforcement. You could barely even see what the street looked like. And it was good from our view to see so many folks responding to this incident, whether it was police there on campus and then helicopters as well too up in the air. But again, not a way you want to start your school year, and especially just as a freshman as well too.
We're getting kind of a better insight onto the training that occurs for active shooter situations. So, we heard from a student, we heard from a professor who said he was disappointed in the way that this was handled by the university. Well, according to the university's website, they do have active shooter critical incident standards and protocol, and it says that they actually share this message. UNC-Chapel Hill police share this message and give training sessions and have been doing this over the past couple of years to different groups, departments, and residents' communities throughout campus in the hopes they're aware of something. They're aware of what to do in a situation like this. So there is some sort of training. I can't imagine that it's at the level that we see in our primary schools, because those are such controlled environments where that they will be there every day and you're able to give that active training. But so there is training that is involved. It's not clear how extensive it is, but it'll be. I will be curious to hear in the coming days what others think about the response from campus, knowing that this has happened.
Yeah,
I mean, even that professor said that he had some questions about how things were handled, whether it was resolved fairly quickly, but he did say, I still have questions, I still have some doubts and concerns. But I mean, that's what, when you go through something like this, that's when policies change, like for that university and for every college that has to go through this, or high school, or whatever the situation is, that's when you reevaluate yourself and make changes, and I'm sure that'll happen.
I mean, we've seen it happen here on the local level with our high schools and middle schools, I mean, think about a couple of years ago, there were no body scanners, no metal detectors in any of our schools. Well, there are a couple of instances where guns show up on campus, other weapons, and all of a sudden you've got body scanners in schools, and then you're bringing in the metal detectors, and one district does it, and then another district does it, and so here we are. You are responding to the threat that exists.
And bringing up the professor again, who voiced his concerns. This is a professor who has been in a situation where an incident just like this has taken place at another university that he was at. So, of course, he's having a lot of questions, a lot of different concerns, and was probably shaken up himself to recount all of those memories that he experienced at the previous university he was at.
I'm sure we'll watch for the outreach for students and staff, and really even citizens of Chapel Hill. That's a tiny town. If it wasn't for the university, that would be a 3-stoplight town probably. I mean, everything caters to the university. So even Chapel Hill residents, they're right on top of the university. So they're a part of this also.
And I mean, we saw that was it Chapel Hill Carborough School District closed for the day once this all happened. So I mean, they are tied very tightly together.
And I think that's also the triangle universities. Duke, State, and Carolina Duke and Carolina are 7 minutes apart. State and Carolina are 20 minutes apart. So it affects everybody there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll just continue to watch this story unfold as well too. And we know, I'm sure, that mental health resources will be on deck for these students and staff who are going to need it. But also just continuing in hopes to have those conversations amongst each other, because everybody needs support in different ways. We saw the one student who said that she is still, shaken up. She doesn't still feel like she doesn't know if she's kind of safe. And so a lot of people respond to these things differently, which is, it's important to make sure those resources are on deck for students and staff to grab a hold of when you're in incidents just like this.
Oh, look at that.
This is a live picture right now of appears to be several FBI personnel walking toward the building. We just got an update that this live news conference that was supposed to happen at the top of the hour has now been pushed back to 5:45. So we're going to continue to follow any of new developments developments until then, but we know that 5:45 is now the current time when we will be getting some sort of update on the situation that unfolded on campus today.
Well, and I think what we're seeing here, the increased police activity, in this case, the FBI, in my opinion, would mean they're crunching a lot of data right now, right? They're trying to figure out exactly what happened so that they have enough information to give us when they actually, in 20 minutes or so, when they do that.
We
update.
just got a statement too from, let me see, from media relations at UNC-Chapel Hill. It says that UNC police will hold a press conference at 5:45 p.m. at the Carolina Inn. UNC-Chapel Hill Chancellor Kevin Guskowitz and Chief of Police Brian James will address today's active assailant incident at Caudle Laboratories on the University of North Carolina campus. It says University police were notified of shots fired in Caudle Laboratories at 1:02 p.m. The suspect was taken into custody around 2:38 p.m. An all clear was issued and the campus lockdown was lifted at 4:13. So even just within that very short statement, we got a lot of new information. We now know, according to police, that there was a shooting that occurred inside Caudle Laboratories, which is on South Road, if you're familiar with campus. It happened at 1:02 p.m. The suspect was taken into custody almost exactly 90 minutes after that.
Wow.
As we know, there was an all-campus lockdown. They called this suspect, or they called the person of interest, armed and dangerous. We also do now kind of the timeline of events that occurred. Sydney, you were talking about earlier about how we were going to be hearing from a familiar face coming up in this news conference.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, Chief Brian James, who used to be the chief for Greensboro here in Greensboro, and who is now the chief over at UNC. So definitely a familiar face now as we look to exactly learn more information, more updates to this situation that many people, many parents, students, like you said, Eric, that this is a story that has gained national attention, that folks are trying to get a handle of why this occurred, what happened, what's going on. And again, still has to be some patience as police continue to investigate, because there's got to be a lot of hands on deck when it comes to something like this. But we will look to hear from that again. Chad, you said at about 5:45, and we do have crews there as well too. And I believe, if I heard my producer right, that our Nixon Norman has an update there now. She's live there at the press conference that'll be taking place soon. Nixon?
Yeah, that's right. We walked over here to the Carolina Inn, which is close and on the campus of UNC, and things have been pushed back to 5:45. It is now 5:25, so we have about 20 minutes until we hear more here at the conference, and I'm sure we'll hear more about the suspect, what actually went down today. But again, things are going to start at 5:45, so again, about 20 minutes out, and we will continue to give you more information as we receive more information. That's it right now, and I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, Nixon, while we are waiting, if we're able to bring her back, would you just explain to us some of the message and the feelings that you heard from students when you interviewed them just about an hour ago? I know you talked to several of them. Obviously, they are, understandably shaken up over this.
Yes, so I spoke with a lot of students off camera, and of course the 3 students that I did speak to on camera, but even some of the people who I talked to off camera, a lot of the emotions that I kept hearing was nervous, shaken up, shocked that the fact that this had happened on their campus so close to where they physically were throughout the day. And again, although some students were at the library, and then again, Simran, the last student I had interviewed, was actually in the main area of interest. So there were students all across the campus, but it really didn't matter where they were today. All of them still felt those similar emotions of nerves being racked up. They were fearful. They were feeling things that they felt like they shouldn't have to feel on the second week of school. So definitely a lot of rattled nerves here at UNC-Chapel Hill today for sure.
Well, and Nixon's correct, because it's emotional, and so we've talked about the mental healing that will have to happen after this, and I mean, really, it's trauma, right? It is a form of trauma, and there's an organization called UNC Healthy Heals, and that is like a collaboration with campus health and student wellness, and also counseling and psychological services. They posted just 15 minutes ago. Today we had an active shooter locked down on campus. That is heavy. You probably have feelings about what happened today. Whether your feeling is valid and worth or whatever you're feeling, it is valid and worth talking about with someone you trust. We collectively experienced a trauma. We will heal from it together. So that's kind of the beginning of the university and its organizations that deal with mental health to reach out and heal not only the campus but the community as well.
And next we're going to toss it to our other reporter, Hannah Jeffries, who is right outside of where the investigation is happening. Hannah, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Sydney, we got here about 20 minutes ago and we've done a few laps around the campus. This really is the area over here near Caldwell Laboratories where police presence is the heaviest right now. A little bit earlier, as you can see right along this brick way, there were a few dozen FBI agents who just started. They had the canines out. They were out sniffing over this building right here, waiting for my cameraman Sean so I can show you guys this building. This is where they had the dogs sniffing in the bushes near the windows. If you look this way, there are 2 FBI agents at the top of this staircase. This again is the place in campus where there is still the most police presence right now. UNC police are here. The FBI investigation unit, the evidence collectors are here. That's what's happening over here right now, guys, as we watch and wait to see all the details of what unfolded this afternoon. This is the area where law enforcement is right now. Back to you.
Hannah, thank you. We saw in your live picture earlier several what looked to be FBI personnel walking by into that building, but really it seems kind of like a ghost town around there. Can you explain just the feeling on campus right now?
Sure, Chad. As soon as you just walk on campus, you just see that people are preoccupied. They've got stuff on their minds. They've had a long afternoon. A lady just walked up a little earlier and I looked at her and I said, are you okay? And she said, yes, ma'am. But that sense of nervousness was in her voice. It is very fair to say that everyone here this afternoon is uneasy. It does seem like operations are continuing. I will say along this street where the bell tower is and the Caldwell Laboratories, we've had a lot of traffic. People just looking around, seeing what's happening as these group of law enforcement officers do just travel up and down this street. They were, like I said earlier, Chad, they were all up here and then they maneuvered, up there. You can see one more of them right now up these steps and into these laboratories, up the street this way and that way. So they have, broken off a little bit. They were all together at one point about 10-15 minutes ago. But yeah, it is a very sombering feeling on campus, and these kids went through a lot today, as we've been talking about, 6th day of class, and we're dealing with an active shooter. So our thoughts and prayers are going out to them. And, on the way here, as soon as my photographer and I heard that the suspect had been in custody, tears came down our face because, as you know, we're in North Carolina. UNC-Chapel Hill is where lots of people we know and love go. Eric mentioned it a little bit earlier. All over the USA, people come here to go to this school, and we have loved ones that are here, so we're happy to know that they're okay.
Absolutely, thank you, Hannah. That's so true. And Chapel Hill has a big contingency of international students as well, so this is a global story.
Yeah, and just what Hannah said, she said that there was someone near her, I can't remember if it was a student or a staff member, but they're still shaken up, and thankfully, while things are all in the clear, a person is in custody, these are feelings that folks are still going to be able to feel, whether in the next hours, in the next few days, who knows, the next few weeks. And so it's good that mental health resources are going to be talked about. We heard also too, you brought up a university that kind of talked about some resources made available that wasn't even at UNC. Mm-hmm. So this is something that we're going to be seeing, people showing support when they're having to face an incident like this that they did within these past few hours.
I just wanted to do a little bit of searching on this Caldwell Labs. I had never heard of it. Eric, I don't know if you had ever heard of it.
No, I hadn't either. I know the area, and I know that's part of the UNC hospital system. There are lots of labs and classrooms in that area that are health related.
Yeah, so basically the basic information is that they dedicated this new building for chemistry back in 2007. Okay. They named it in honor of 2 people who were married and their last names are Caldwell. They graduated from Carolina with a degree in chemistry and pharmacy, and so the building was named after them. So that's about all I know at this point, but this is the scene where all of this investigation is happening. According to the campus, there was a shooting inside Cauto Labs. Still trying to figure out how many people work there, what they all do there, but just a sad situation. And here's a campus map showing. I don't know, Eric, you'd probably be better off than me.
Yeah,
there it
I'm
is
looking.
Right there.
I may have to.
Yeah,
All right,
the
so
mouse
that's
is hovering over that building.
Okay, so down, just south of that is, so if we were to scoot that map up, yeah, there you go. There's the bell tower. See, down and to the right there. Yep, that's the bell tower.
We were hearing of it, yeah.
Yep, and then straight down that road is Keenan Stadium. That's the football stadium in the bottom right corner. Yep. So this is very close. And notice I've been harping on the wooded area around there, but it is arguably the most dense, wooded area on campus.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there is a kind of a law, if you want to put it that way. When the Keenan family donated money for that football stadium, they said they never wanted the stadium to go above the tree line. So the university had to wait until the trees around there grew a certain amount before we could expand the football stadium. So that's why the trees are so populous around there. They did not want Chapel Hill to lose that, as they called it, a village type feel.
We've also just, obviously condolences and thoughts and prayers are pouring in from all over the place. Senator Tom Tillis just put a statement on social media. It says, the scenes out of UNC-Chapel Hill are heartbreaking and something that no student, teacher, or parent should ever have to live through. Susan, his wife, and I mourn the innocent life taken. Okay. He said that there was an innocent life taken.
Oh.
He said, Susan and I, I'm just reading this live as we're talking about it. It says, Susan and I mourn the innocent life taken. We must all continue to work together to protect our schools, confront the nation's mental health crisis, and keep firearms out of the wrong hands. You can see it here, the third sentence in that paragraph, mourning the innocent life taken. So this is important to note. We have not heard from law enforcement about any sort of injuries or deaths. But this is Senator Tom Tillis saying that there was an innocent life taken. So again, we are awaiting this news conference by UNC-Chapel Hill Police, supposed to start at 5:45, so about 11 minutes from now. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to learn more of this information, if that is in fact correct. But it seems as though Senator Tillis is getting information that we don't have, and it's what we didn't want to hear.
And just obviously a chilling statement, to read as well too. Again, like Chad said, we're continuing to watch as this investigation unfolds. There will be a hopefully meeting at 5:45 to hear more updates. But it's just a chilling situation over there at UNC.
Well, and guarantee you that's why they postponed the press conference till 5:45, because they've got to really get all their facts together,
right.
And make sure, especially if there was a loss of life, and apparently there was.
Yeah. And again, our Hannah Jeffries was just out there outside of the building where they were conducting an investigation. Behind her definitely looked, like you said, a ghost town. There was not a lot of students around. Obviously there was a law enforcement presence. We saw some FBI out there on campus as well too. But this is the aftermath of what we're seeing. Beforehand, loads and loads and loads of law enforcement out there as they were conducting that investigation earlier today. So just a completely different comparisons from earlier.
I'd be curious too to see what Franklin Street, which is the main street in Chapel Hill, that's usually just constant foot traffic, right? Very busy. It's the downtown, if you will, at Chapel Hill. I'd be curious to see what that looks like now. I don't know if Hannah drove through there when they were coming in. They said they did a lap around, so I would think they did. But I'll bet you that was sparse as well.
Now it seems as though, I don't know about if you guys can see, but I don't see any. I know she's carrying some police tape now, and of course, okay, now we're getting kicked off. But there was no police tape. There still is no police tape.
There was at one place, but it looked like it was an overhang. But then I never saw it again after that. Of course, we may not be looking at the same entrance.
Now, this is the area where police have said, avoid Cauto Laboratories.
Yes.
Don't go anywhere near there. So this is where their investigation is happening. But I was kind of surprised to see that it was so open the way that it was just now.
From what we just saw, they might not be open very long, because
yeah.
she was kind of shooing us back a little bit. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly kind of where that caution tape, but it was it was a line of tape out there. But we showed you earlier too of kind of what's going on out outside of campus, a lot of folks working to get off, you know, not sure what locations obviously they're going to, but just to another place where they can be safe, decompress, have those conversations that are obviously going to be had after something like this has occurred right there on their campus, right. A place, just like Hannah said, that a lot of students come to from across the nation.
What do you think parents of students at UNC are feeling and thinking at this moment?
So there is, I would think, kind of a double-edged sword right there's that relief, like I've heard from my student, especially after they hear that there was a loss of life. I mean, if Senator Tillis is correct, odds are he is, then there's that sense of relief if they had heard from their student, but it's also the sense of, what do we do now? Like, is the rest of the week, do they just come home, maybe take a week off? Is it a month off? Will the university do remote class? There's so many questions, but I think the immediate response is, my kid's okay, check. And then how do I take care of their mental health in the short term? Because college, you can figure that out, right? If you have to do remote classes, right, whatever you have to do, but taking care of them emotionally is the second step.
I wonder what would be more beneficial to a college student who was at UNC. Is it go home and be with your family for the next couple of days, or is it stay on campus because you need to be able to digest what happened and be able to be there and cope with what has occurred? I don't know the answer to that.
What do we hear every time this happens in a city? There's Orlando strong, there's Boston strong, and I think people use that to say, we're not going to let this beat us. You know, we will not be controlled by fear and by the threat of something like this. You're going to see a lot of UNC strong, Tar Heel strong, whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, support is something that's definitely going to be needed after something like this, and support, whether it's from student to student, parent to student, you know, whether it's local community groups or nearby churches as well too, as they're working together outside of this to make sure, how can we support these students in the best way possible, because they're going to need somebody to talk to after something like this.
By the way, you don't see this a whole lot in a lot of college campuses, but there are 3 churches that are right off the main street, in maybe even 4 I can think of off the top. There's University Methodist and Presbyterian that are right on Franklin Street. So it's an integral part of the community. I knew a lot of Chapel Hill residents when I went to school and students that all went to so some students may be going there, you know, it tests your faith, and that may be the first place they want to go to get that resolved.
I know you said earlier that, you know, if like you, because you are an alumni and you are so tied to campus, you kind of felt like you wanted to go there.
I do. I feel like it right now. And not that there's anything I can do, but it's just a sense of, I want to be there to support the family and to let them know, students know that the alumni care. You know, I mean, that is my first reaction was, I just wanted to be on campus.
And we're going to go back to here to our Hannah Jeffries at the moment now. Hannah, do you have an update for? And we'll go back because we'll actually have a little bit of audio issues. So Hannah, we'll get back to you, but we can see that she was there in front of some police tape right there. So we're just talking about police tape. So yeah, I mean, this is still an active investigation. There's still a lot going on, a lot to unfold as they continue to really get to the root of what happened here, what took place there at UNC Chapel Hill.
And so we have 2 reporters there. Nixon Norman, you saw, if you've been watching our continuing coverage, she interviewed several students who just talked about their perspective, where they were when this occurred, and their frustration over the fact that it has happened. Hannah Jeffries has just arrived. She's at the location where the investigation is happening. So we saw them preparing to put up police tape. It looks like the police tape is now up. And so Nixon is kind of observing the area where there is going to be a news conference. They've pushed it back now once. It was supposed to start at 5, and now we're preparing for 5:45, which is now just 4 minutes from now. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get some new information. You can see on the bottom of your screen there that Senator Tillis, in a statement, said that an innocent life was taken. This is the, I guess, most comprehensive fact that we have learned today from Senator Tillis. Police still remaining tight-lipped as they prepare to give us an update here in the coming minutes.
We're going to take it back here to our Hannah Jeffries. Hannah, what can you tell us from where you're at?
Right, guys, if you remember just a few minutes ago, you checked in right here, and just recently police have came and blocked off this section saying we can no longer get as close as we once were. As you can see, FBI agents are at the top of this staircase, seem to be talking, don't seem to be in too much of a rush. When they came down here, they gave us time to get our stuff together and move. One more development just within the past few minutes. As I had mentioned earlier, the dogs were out sniffing. The evidence FBI team has just put some of their dogs up. We still have a police presence in this area. Again, we're standing near Caudill Laboratories. They said this was the area of interest earlier today. We have 1 or 2 police cars on the right. And once again, law enforcement is scattered around this area. About 30 minutes ago, we saw a group of people just going up and down the street. They are now scattered. Seems to be at the top of this staircase right now. Just one more time, this area is now blocked off. We can't get any further. And again, the dogs at one point were sniffing around these bushes, sniffing near the windows, clearly looking for something, looking for some kind of evidence that is in this area. Once more, the FBI evidence team is right here at UNC-Chapel Hill at the laboratories right now. Back to you.
All right.
Well, and we're still waiting. We should be just a few minutes away from that press conference at the Carolina Inn. But based on what we're seeing, the fact that that police tape went up just recently, right, in the last 10, 15 minutes, and the fact that we do know a life was taken, I'm sure there's a lot for them to process.
Yeah, letting people know too that there's still some investigation going on up there while things seem to be, calm. They've given the all clear. We don't really see students, staff that much on campus. There is still a lot to go through and unpacked, and that's what if you are still on campus, what folks they want people to know, as well as our crew as well too, as they continue to investigate what took place out there today.
Amber Lake, I believe she's also on campus today. She shared video with us of a line of cars heading into Chapel Hill. She was also talking about how officers are still walking around with dogs. This is going back to our live picture of more FBI personnel walking into the building. So this, you would imagine, if the FBI is involved and this many FBI personnel, that this will be an extensive investigation.
Amber also contacted me. She texted me a few minutes. She said there is a lot of foot traffic on Franklin Street, but it's mostly students walking away from campus. So I would guess they're probably trying to get to the buses, university buses, and get out to apartment complexes and places away, or maybe they're heading home. You can't blame them. When something like this happens, they might need that just to get a break.
You might be, if you're at home, wondering why we seem to be tap dancing. Well, we have been waiting for this news conference that was supposed to start 45 minutes ago. They pushed it back to 5:45. So here we are awaiting a news conference from UNC-Chapel Hill Police on the investigation that's occurring on campus right now. I imagine they pushed it back to get more of their ducks in a row. I imagine they want to do this once per so over many hours and don't want to have to revisit it. So they're probably gathering all of this information right now. This is a live picture of the room at the Carolina Inn where a lot of journalists have gathered. If you've changed the channel or you've gone over to any of the other cable news outlets today, this has been the story of the day in the United States. And so there are a lot of eyes on this room today as we prepare to learn more about what happened on UNC's campus today. A lot of people just trying to understand what happened, why it happened, and how we can prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, a lot of folks just trying to make sense of what's going on. We talked about the line of cars, of them heading out to different directions and trying to get to other locations, trying to get away from campus at this time as this investigation continues to unfold. But I talked about, we never know what those conversations are like in those cars, people are really still shaken up by what took place at a university that they've come to get an education, to not expect that something like this or hope that something like this would ever take place at their campus today.
And it is such a big family. It's an extended family with alumni. There are more than 336,000 alumni from UNC-Chapel Hill, and that's all across the globe. So a lot of those people are reaching out through electronic means just to stay united, stay together, and get that resolve they need.
Support is going to be something that's
Huge.
just so important after something like this, for sure.
It's hard to when processing all of this, it's hard to think about what these students are going through.
Sure.
We talked earlier about how they might just be desensitized to it because they have heard so much about shootings on school campuses. Maybe some of them have been in situations where there was a shooting on their high school campus before they came to college, and it's a sad state of affairs that's where we're at, where they know that it's happened and in other places, and it was only a matter of time before it happened where they are.
It's interesting because all of us have our own perspective. For me, I'm an alumni thinking about my university and all that. Parents are thinking about the kids. We, in this conversation, have talked about the parents and the community, but Forsyth County Sheriff's Office said our hearts are with the students and staff at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, as well as with the numerous law enforcement and first responders on scene. They have hearts, even though that's their job. When they know there's an innocent life taken on a college campus, that affects them too. So that's another group that this affects.
And I mean, a lot of them have kids.
Yes,
a lot of them
that's right.
probably have kids in college. Some of them might have kids that go to UNC. So I mean, the effects are far-reaching.
We're going to pass it over to Tanya, who is a part of our coverage today.
Just as you guys were talking, it reminded me of the conversation that I just had with Dr. Charity Watkins. She is what you would call a triple heal. She got her undergrad, her master's, and her PhD at UNC-Chapel Hill. She's just down the road at NC Central. And I asked her, hey, we just heard from a student who said, I felt like I wasn't prepared. They said, make your best decision on what to do when everything was happening and the alarms were sounding. And I said, what kind of preparation do you guys have? What kind of preparation do students have? And here's her answer.
So I recall videos of the three things that you can do: flee, hide. I can't remember the acronym, but in terms of how close the danger is, reacting in that way. But of course, I can't even remember it, and I'm not in a situation where there is gunshots being shot or alarms being going off right now. So I'm not sure how I would be able to recall that information when I'm not even able to recall the acronym right now. And I'm a faculty member who has been on campus for a long time. I'm definitely not 17 years old. So I can see that being a very scary and confusing experience for a student.
I mean, she is thinking to herself on the faculty side, on the student side, she has been both. She says, we're in a public university, which means anyone can pretty much walk on campus, including a student, whether they're happy or unhappy with things. She says, as we're waiting to find out what is happening, what's going on, maybe if there is a casualty, and that is kind of what we are hearing from Senator Tillis. She was talking about how, she said, I want you to think about all the people involved, the faculty, the students, and the entire community as a whole.
As we are waiting for more information on the what happened today, I do encourage us to consider all of who's on campus. Students, we talk a lot about how they are impacted, but we also have faculty and staff who are being impacted. Whether they have students on campus as well. They may have children on campus, or they may have children in Chapel Hill, Carborough schools that they weren't able to get to as they were both locked down. I just want us to consider how they may also be impacted by this situation.
I mean, this is just a massive ripple effect all through this entire community, not just the UNC-Chapel Hill community, but the Carborough community as well. Thinking about all those students who weren't dismissed until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Some of them, that was their very first day of school ever, and they were on lockdown. Those parents who were sending their kids to the first day of school ever, and then having their child on lockdown, and then having to wait all of those hours to wait and pick up their children. So this really impacted UNC-Chapel Hill, but also the community as a whole. Guys?
Tanya, thank you. She brought up an interesting, a great point that and I'm glad that she brought it up because I feel like sometimes it may be overlooked, myself included, are the staff impacted by this, the faculty members. We talked about classrooms where they have 100+ kids in them. Think about being the faculty member and feeling as though you are in charge of keeping 100 kids safe.
It can be overwhelming.
In a situation where there possibly is an active shooter. We hear in schools where there have been deadly shootings of teachers shielding their kids, you know, just trying to keep their kids safe. Obviously the kids are a bit older when you're in college, but I imagine they feel some sort of responsibility for those kids.
And you can't do but so much in that situation. I mean, even in a classroom, even if you're in a smaller classroom in the college situation, what can you do? You know, you do what you're taught. And as a faculty member, that's got to be helpless feeling when you're like, all of us get down. I mean, that's kind of all you can do at that point.
Yeah, it definitely can be, I'm sure, heavy. You're talking about with freshman classes. That's usually the amount of students that are in those freshman classes, 100 or 200 as well too, compared to one or just two faculty members as well as that. But it could definitely be overwhelming for sure for faculty members.
It looks like the investigation continues as police have discussions among themselves and obviously with the FBI agents as well.
Yeah, can we get a closer look at this live picture right now? You can see the sign on the right, Cotto Laboratories. Several police, law enforcement looking around. They've got part of the area taped off, so we know that there is an active investigation happening. Just an immense amount of law enforcement that we have seen throughout the day in this area. I wouldn't be surprised if we later find out that some of our triad law enforcement went to respond to this situation. I don't know if you remember, but a couple of months ago, we worked with Greensboro Police on I wouldn't call it active shooter situation, but they gave us kind of a peek behind the curtain of what happens when they hear of an active shooter call. And basically an alert goes out to law enforcement within like a 50-mile radius. And they have this alert saying that there was some sort of situation. And law enforcement from all over is encouraged to respond.
Yeah.
So, you know, it wouldn't be surprising to me if we heard that there was law enforcement from our area that also responded. Chapel Hill is not that far away.
I was going to say that 50 miles would probably definitely get to our, at least the viewing area.
Okay, we are getting word that the presser is starting now. We know that this is happening at the Carolina Inn in Chapel Hill. They're approaching the podium now, getting ready to share an update on the situation that happened at UNC today. Let's take a listen.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you for your patience as we work through today's events. It's Kevin Best. I'm the Senior Director of Media Relations here at Chapel Hill. We have a number of folks here with us, and a few of them will take a few of your questions and discuss today's incident. We have University of North Carolina Chancellor Kevin Guskowitz, UNC Chief of Police Brian James, Chapel Hill Police Chief Salisa Lehue, Orange County Sheriff Charles Blackwood, Commander Freddie L. Johnson, Jr. of the North Carolina Highway Patrol, Secretary Eddie Buffalo, Jr. of the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Special Agent in Charge Bob DeWitt of the FBI, Orange County District Attorney Jeff Neiman, and UNC Board of Trustees Chair David Bolick, Jr. We know there'll be a lot of questions, and we'll take a few, but please understand this is an ongoing investigation and questions will be limited. We'll start with Chancellor Guskowitz.
Thank you all for being here today. This is truly a tragic day for our campus community. Chief James will give more details on the ongoing investigation, but this afternoon, shortly after 1 p.m., UNC police were notified of shots being fired in Cotto Laboratories on our campus. The suspect was eventually apprehended and is now in custody. I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community. We will work to rebuild that sense of trust and safety within our community, and our hearts are with the family of our fellow faculty member, those who are personally connected to the victim, and those traumatized by this senseless act of violence. In response, we have canceled classes for the rest of today and have canceled classes for tomorrow. We've sent an email with resources for our students, faculty, and staff. More information will be provided on additional services for our campus community. I'm grateful to our Emergency Operations Center, UNC Police, for managing this situation so effectively and keeping our community safe. I'm also grateful to our faculty, staff, and students for their effective cooperation during this event today. It's why we have an emergency action plan with an active shooter protocol that's practiced regularly, and because of that, this situation played out as best as we could have asked for today. I hope that you'll join me in praying for the victim's family, and every member of our Carolina community. And I encourage our community to come together during this difficult time. I'm now going to turn it over to Chief James to give you additional details on what happened today and his department's impressive response in keeping the rest of our campus safe. And I also want to thank the other law enforcement agencies, many of whom are here today, for the role that they played in keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Brian James. I'm the Chief of Police for the UNC Police Department. I thank you for being here this evening. And thank you, Chancellor Guskowitz. I also want to offer my sympathy to the victim in this incident and express my empathy to the entire UNC and Chapel Hill community. I'm very sorry to be standing before you today in these circumstances. It's a day we train for, but we hope it never comes. I know there will be a lot of questions as we try to answer as many as possible, but please understand this is an ongoing investigation, and there are many questions that we will not have the answers to at this time. I want to start by confirming, as the Chancellor did, we do have the suspect in custody from today's active assailant incident. At this time, we are not releasing the name of the suspect, as formal charges have not yet been filed. We are committed to conducting a thorough investigation, and we will provide as many updates throughout the process as we can. The FBI is providing assistance with multiple resources, including victim assistance and the evidence response team. The Caudle Lab, which is the location of the incident, will be closed until further notice as evidence is being processed. We want to ensure that we gather every piece of evidence to determine exactly what happened here today and why it happened. It is too early in this investigation to know a motive for the shooting. We will be working with all the law enforcement agencies you see represented here to uncover every fact available. That will take time, so we ask in the meantime that you continue to express your warm thoughts to the UNC-Chapel Hill community. This investigation will continue for several weeks, but here's what we know right now. UNC Police received a 911 call at 1:02 p.m. this afternoon reporting shots fired at Caudle Laboratory, located on South Road near the center of campus. An emergency alert Carolina was issued, and the emergency siren sounded at 1:04 p.m., notifying campus of the emergency and issuing a lockdown. Upon arrival at Caudle Labs, police discovered one individual, a faculty member, had been shot. Unfortunately, as we have reported, this person is deceased. We will not be releasing further details on that person at this time, as we are working to contact all of this person's family and will be providing them with support and resources. This is the only fatality, and no other injuries were reported. Based on witness information at the scene, UNC police were able to identify a suspect, and after a search of the surrounding area, this suspect was taken into custody at 2:31 p.m. The lockdown of the campus remained while police verified the suspect's identity and conducted a comprehensive search for the weapon that was used in the shooting, which at this time has not been located. I want to thank all the law enforcement agencies who responded to assist today. Their assistance was invaluable, and we could not have responded so quickly or so thoroughly without their help. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Kevin, and I guess we'll take any questions.
Yeah, at this time, like I said earlier, and like the chief said, we'll have a few questions that we can take. Obviously, ongoing investigation, only so many things that can be discussed. But if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll point to you, identify yourself, and then ask your question. Here on the left, second row.
Stephen Schlick, UNC's Carolina Wheat. We know that there's a car in the new Venable parking lot. Police did confirm to us that that does have some sort of correlation to this event. Can you all speak to what kind of correlation that has to this?
Yes, a car was identified. We do think that it is related to the investigation. As we said, we are still in the process of collecting evidence and conducting interviews, so I'm really not prepared at this time to say exactly what the connection is, but we do have that car identified as a piece of possible evidence. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we heard from talking to students that they had some confusion during the day because between the time that you said the suspect was apprehended and the time that the all clear went out, that was about 2 hours, and students were being evacuated from some buildings before then, and said that they weren't really sure what to do next. Can you speak to the communication during this process and why that all clear took so long?
Yes, so once the suspect was identified and apprehended, we still had to ensure that this was the correct person. So there was an identification process. We did not want to put that information out at that time because we weren't sure. Also, we were receiving a number of calls around campus about possibly having other victims. There were a couple of other calls about possible gunshots. So we had to ensure that the entire campus was safe. So we had a number of officers that were on the ground doing an entire sweep of that area, also searching all the adjacent buildings. So we wanted to be sure that that the campus was in fact all clear before we issued that. So that's why there was the lapse in time. We just wanted to be sure that we had that person in custody and it was the correct person.
Can you tell us the suspect and the faculty member was killed? Were they known to each other? Did they ever work together?
We don't know that information at this time. That'll hopefully be uncovered through interviews of the suspect as well as any witnesses that may be available.
This is really a time for the community to come together, and these tragic events sadly are happening across our nation. And again, it's why we prepare and talk about a sense of community. And so right now, that's my thoughts and prayers are with obviously the victim and his the victim's family and friends and colleagues and students who are part of that department. And so we hope our students will access the resources that we're making available and come together in a really important way for the campus right now.
As an observer, can you tell us about how the suspect was apprehended and where exactly he was apprehended? Were there any tips that came in? Were there any reports?
So we did a comprehensive search of campus as well as surrounding areas. So at this point, I am not prepared to say how he was apprehended, but we are sure that it's him, and we were able to verify that.
I mean, this is for Chancellor. She had said that the faculty had essentially told the students to make personal decisions on what to do next. She had said that she had hid in a closet. A lot of people were calling their parents, saying goodbyes. I know you had mentioned that there is an active shooter kind of protocol put in place. But it seems that some of that maybe got lost in confusion today. And I know this is a scary kind of incident, but what is that protocol? And again, they were told that they needed to make a personal decision about themselves today.
I'm very pleased with how the protocol was carried out today. I had a chance to go over, along with the provost and others, to talk with the faculty who were there in the building at the time of the shooting and some of the students, and they're certainly traumatized, but I want to commend those who were in the building, ensuring that they were doing everything possible to ensure the safety of those students and faculty and staff that were in the building. And so, again, even the best laid plans, as you know, and protocols, sometimes they don't play out as you'd like to, but I'm very pleased with what we know at this point. We'll have an opportunity to review that, learn from the investigation and questions that are being asked, and certainly put improvements to that if need be. So.
Yes, how helpful is it to have the suspect alive?
Well, we certainly want an opportunity to interview the suspect if that's possible. And to actually have the suspect in custody, it gives us an opportunity to figure out the why and even the how, and also helps us to uncover a motive and really just why this happened today. Why today? Why at all? And we want to learn from this incident, and we will certainly work to do our best to ensure that this never happens again on the UNC campus. And I think that that information that we could glean from the suspect is very important as we move forward.
You said you're looking for a weapon. Is it a firearm? Do you know what type of firearm? Is it too early to tell if the suspect has legally obtained a firearm?
We are looking for a firearm. It is too early to determine if the firearm was legally obtained, and not prepared at this time to say exactly what kind of weapon it was.
There were reports earlier this afternoon about possibly some other suspect being taken into custody. Was that an error? Can you kind of talk about what happened there?
Yes, so there was another person that was detained, and we determined very quickly that that was not, in fact, the suspect.
Hi, can you tell me what criteria led to that arrest and then let go of that first initial suspect and why that mistake was made, or how? Do you have any insight on that?
That was based on just the description that we were given of the suspect and that person being in close proximity of the incident.
I know you said you guys are looking to speak to the suspect to try to ascertain the motive, but is there anything that you can share at this time as to what might have led to this?
We really don't know until we speak with the suspect. That's my best answer I can give you now. We really do want to know the why in this case and what led to it.
This won't be the last update we have. We'll only take a few more questions over here in the left.
Folks, we have some students right here in the front row who lived through this. Thousands out there who want to hear from you today. What can you tell them directly? Tell the student body.
First of all, I'm sorry because I know so many of you are feeling uncertain about your safety right now. And again, we have very good protocols in place. There's nothing more important on our campus than the safety and well-being of our community members, and certainly our nearly 30,000 students are at the top of that list alongside our faculty and staff. So we're here for you. I'm pleading with you to use any of the resources that you may need, and we'll come together as a community to ensure your safety and the safety of anyone who visits our campus here in Chapel Hill.
Chancellor, can you specify what kind of training faculty and students get when it comes specifically to active shooter situations? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So we have an emergency action plan, and active shooter training is part of that. And so we, about a year ago, we rolled out a program by which, and I'm going to ask Chief James to say a little bit more about it, along with Daryl Jeter, who I know does an incredible job of running our emergency operations center. And there are specific guidelines provided to faculty for the specific classrooms and laboratories in terms of how to go about doing this. Now, it's every classroom, every laboratory, every auditorium is slightly different in terms of how you would lock down a facility, but we're doing the very best that we can. And again, I'm proud of the fact that our Emergency Operations Center took this very seriously, learning from some of the tragedies that have happened on other campuses, and we all have to learn from one another. But Chief may want to say a little bit more about the specifics.
So the primary purpose of the emergency action plan was to ensure that every faculty member as well as student or staff understood what to do in a case like this, such as an emergency lockdown or an active shooter. Another layer that we've done from the University Police Department, we've done a number of security surveys across campus to find out how to better secure various buildings on campus. As you know, the buildings range in age on this campus, and so each building can be very unique in how you actually lock it down. So it was important that every member of the organization of UNC assigned to those various buildings understands how to lock down a classroom or any type of structure that they're in, and know where the best places are to go in case of a lockdown. So we've worked very diligently to ensure that that information is out there, and we'll continue to work on those efforts.
All right, thank you, everybody. Like I said, we'll have more information throughout the next few days, but thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll have updates as we have.
You are watching WFMY News 2 at 6 o'clock, and we have been watching a live news conference regarding a deadly shooting on the campus of UNC-Chapel Hill today. We heard both from Brian James, who is the Chief of Police for UNC-Chapel Hill Police, and also Kevin Guskowitz, who is the Chancellor of UNC. A couple of the bullet points we heard today: a faculty member was the person who died in this shooting. They have not found the weapon used. They don't know if the suspect and the victim knew each other. At this point, they're not releasing the identity of the victim or the suspect, and no charges have been formally filed just yet.
Yeah, that's right. Just obviously a devastating day for UNC's campus, and not the outcome that all of us across the nation who has been invested in this story did not hope for today. Again, just like Chad said, that they have just confirmed that one faculty member has been killed in this shooting. They have not released a name because they are still working to let the family know. And this is just a tough time for that family, and thoughts and prayers are being sent, I'm sure, their way.
And also, you know, we talked about this earlier, that of course there was an active shooter, an emergency plan that the university had. And I think Chancellor Guskowitz said it was interesting. He said, you know, the best laid plans, there will be some people that make mistakes,
right,
and that and the other. And our own Nixon Norman, you know, brought up that student's comment that their particular professor in that one classroom said, make a personal decision as to what you want to do. Probably not the exact line of thinking that the emergency plan had out there, but in that situation, you do the best you can. And for them to make that announcement at 1 o'clock and an hour and a half later have somebody in custody was pretty big.
All right, let's bring in Nixon Norman now, who was sitting through that news conference. Nixon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and again, I learned all this information just as you at home and in the studio learned this information, so I'm just going to take a couple looks at my phone. But one thing that I did find interesting is what the chief had actually said, that different buildings on this campus are aged differently. So when it comes to how they lock down those buildings in these emergency or active shooter situations also differ. And again, that kind of goes back to what I was asking when I was speaking with that student who said that they were told to make a personal decision. And again, Chancellor had also said, you know, in theory, a lot of the protocols put in place, they work again in theory, but when it comes to actual emergency situations, things play out differently than they're supposed to. But again, I agree with you, Eric, from an hour and a half later, from the signaling and the sirens being made to a suspect actually being in custody, that's pretty great. Now, I will say another thing I found interesting about all of this is that another suspect was contained due to a description made of the suspect and also to proximity to where the incident was taking place. But they also said up here during the news conference that that suspect was very quickly let go because they had found out that it was actually not the real suspect, the one who is now in custody at this current moment, who, again, they're not letting us know the identity of the suspect or the victim at this time. The suspect again, actually, speaking of the suspect, another thing I really thought was interesting is because the suspect is still alive, they're going to be able to figure out more about the why and the how. And I'm sure many of us at home and here and on Chapel Hill, we're wondering about that why this took place, why today. It's the second week of school. Were they targeting that professor? Was there a relationship between the professor and, or faculty member rather, and the suspect? We don't know. But again, law enforcement is going to speak to the suspect, and we will hopefully be able to learn more about that why and that how of how everything went down today. Again, it has been a tragic day for the UNC-Chapel Hill community, and we'll continue to keep you updated, again, as we know more information.
Nixon, thank you. I mean, lots of questions, of course, are going to be at, with the suspect in regards to what happened, what is the motive, what's going on. Chief James also mentioned as well, too, in the presser that this is an investigation that is going to continue for several weeks. There's so many questions that need to be answered into what took place, because now a life has been taken as a result of this.
One thing Chief James mentioned, I just want to kind of reiterate. He talked about how every building's different, right? That's true. The Caudle Labs are not that old. I mean, that's a fairly new building. But meanwhile, you've got Old East and Old West, which are dormitories that I'm sure they had to go through everywhere, right? Those were built in 1793, like the oldest buildings on the campus. So you look at those vast differences, and they had a big job on their hands.
One other point that Chief James made that I thought was great was that 2 minutes after they received the 911 call about a shots fired, they had the sirens sounding across campus.
They were on their way.
Within 2 minutes, allowing people to get to safety, or at least be clear of an area where there was going to be an investigation.
We're going to now take it to our Hannah Jeffries, who is now at the location of where this kind of all unfolded. Hannah, what can you tell us now with the new information that we have learned?
Right, Sydney, as you mentioned, we have been going through this roller coaster of an afternoon of emotions and just so many unknowns. But what we know for sure right now is this is where those shots rang out. This is where it all started over here at Caudle Labs. And when we first arrived this afternoon, this is where we came. This was where the police presence was. This is where the FBI investigative unit, evidence unit is searching. All afternoon I've been out here. They've had the dogs out here. Just recently, they blocked off this area back there where there was crime scene tape. So as they had mentioned in that press conference, we have not found a weapon yet. They're searching here. It's safe to say they have reason to believe that a weapon is in this area. Of course, all of this happening, I want to point out, if you're from North Carolina, if you're from anywhere in the country, even beyond, you know the iconic bell tower sitting so close to where the Caudle Laboratories is. Just a tragic afternoon for UNC-Chapel Hill's campus. Back to you guys.
Hannah, thank you. I also just want to point out Kevin Guskowitz, the chancellor at UNC-Chapel Hill, was putting on social media that Carolina will move into a Condition 2 tomorrow, which basically means classes will be canceled tomorrow and all non-mandatory operations are suspended.
And I guess that's until further notice, right? Because that's all they said was tomorrow.
Right, especially considering, when we were speaking to students earlier today, I mean, they wanted to get as far away from campus as possible. So, I mean, I don't know if that means, going home to somewhere else outside of Chapel Hill. One student told us that she was going to be bringing her friends who live out of state home with her because they don't want to be on campus. They just want to be away from campus. So, I mean, it could be a while before we understand when it's going to be appropriate to go back to school.
Absolutely. And that's individual too. That's case by case basis of what those students feel like.
And we're bringing you team coverage here today. And our Amber Lake, another reporter we have on this story, is has some updates as well too. Amber, looks like you're on campus, if I'm correct. What can you tell us?
So heading into Chapel Hill, it's almost eerie for me to even be a part of it, because I saw a long line of cars trying to get out of this area. And as soon as I got on campus, as soon as I parked over here across from the music building, I was able to talk to two people who are from our area. They're from the Triad. They went to Wheatmore High School, and they walked me through where they were when this happened and how they're feeling right now, right? They were able to go back to their apartment, kind of take a breather, and sorry, we're having to wipe some rain off of our camera. But the two students that I spoke with, we kind of walked through the text messages that they sent back and forth with their family. One student in particular, Jagger Williams, he is a second year here at Chapel Hill, and he said that he was actually in the building across from where the shooting happened, and they were allowed out of class 20 minutes early. So he was walking to his next class, and he said that he heard sirens. He was on the phone with his dad, and as soon as he got into his next class, they closed the doors, they put desks, chairs, anything they could in front of the door to barricade themselves inside. And then he said they just sat there for hours. And he showed me the text messages between him and his large family group message. And they just talked about, he told them what was happening on campus. And you can see the fear in his family, who had no idea what was going on. He had no idea what was going on. Text messages like, are you safe? Can you run? Hide under a desk. Are you okay? Just something that you don't want to experience in your time here in college. College is supposed to be fun, and instead it was a situation where people had to hide in their classrooms. They had to barricade themselves inside. I talked to another student who is a second year here, and she also went to Wheatmore High School in Trinity, which is in the Triad in our area, and she said that she was walking back to her dorm when she heard the sirens, and as soon as she heard the sirens, she took off to her dorm. She got upstairs within minutes, and she felt safe, but then it was the eerie feeling of where are her dorm mates, right? Are they okay? Are they going to be okay? It's just a lot of, the last couple hours have been really stressful, really traumatic for all of the students here on campus. And even though, you know, these students that I talked to are just an hour or so, an hour and a half away from where they're from, it's still an eerie feeling for families, because then the families start questioning, do I need to come to campus? Do I need to come and get you? Do you need to come home? There's just a lot of unknowns. We actually have some students walking away from campus right now, but I'm going to send it back to you. I'm going to keep asking some questions. I'm going to keep seeing where students' heads are at hours after all of this took place. I mean, you can see behind me, right? There's typically on a college campus, the first week, the first 2 weeks of school, these roads, these sidewalks, they are lined with people. Everyone is in good spirits. It's the first couple weeks of class. Everyone is happy. They're ready for school to really get underway, and it's fairly empty right now. Most of the people that I have just talked with passing by have said that not only were they scared, not only are they still scared, but they're sad. They're upset that this is even something that they have to deal with. So, I mean, we're gonna stay out here for the remainder of the night. We're gonna talk to some officials. Hopefully, if we can, we're gonna talk to more students, and we'll bring you more tonight at 11 o'clock, y'all.
Amber, thank you. You know, we've talked several times about how this is really impacting students, but it's the faculty too that also is really impacted by this. I want to bring in Tanya Rivera, who actually spoke with a faculty member today about this situation.
This faculty member, she went and she is called a triple Tar Heel because she got her undergrad, her master's, and her PhD at UNC-Chapel Hill. So she's well versed in Tar Heel Nation. She is just down the street at North Carolina Central as a professor. And when she heard what has happened, she said, "This hits too close to home. This is striking fear in my heart."
Hearing that a faculty member was killed is really heartbreaking. For me as a faculty member, anyone can walk into our classroom, including students who may be upset about their grades or anything. And it just, I'm still waiting for the details of what happened, of course, but it does bring a very, very serious sense of fear for me as a faculty member.
She said she certainly felt vulnerable after hearing this news. And again, we do not know what the relationship is to the person who may have been doing the shooting, to the faculty member. We don't know any of the relationship involved or any of the motive or any of those kinds of things. What we do know is that a faculty member is dead, and we know that that is impacting faculty members all over.
Tanya, thank you. Boy, some tough conversations will be had after this, Eric, especially with people who have children, both college-aged and younger.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, and we've said it before in our coverage today, that parents have that responsibility. You have to talk to your kids about this stuff before it happens in your neck of the woods. Hopefully it never does, but no place is totally safe. Like, you can't, in my opinion, you have trouble blaming, in this situation at least, there are others that are different, but in this one, you have trouble blaming authorities and faculty, because I feel like the plan was in place, Sometimes things don't work exactly the way you want to. It's impossible to protect everyone at all times, and everybody did the best that they could do. I even think the students did a great job. I mean, the videos that we've seen from inside classrooms, they were all huddled under those tables. You know, they were doing what they're supposed to do: barricade the door, stay away from windows, get quiet. I think they did the right thing.
And this is just some video from campus here today at UNC. Again, a shooting incident that took place there on campus. We've been bringing you live updates, some wall-to-wall coverage here at WFMY News 2. We know that one faculty member was killed in this incident. A name has not been released because police are still notifying the family here. And we also do know that the person of interest that they said earlier today was armed and dangerous is now in custody. Chief James, in his comments that he said today at the press conference, says that this is an investigation that is going to take several weeks as they comb through this investigation bit by bit. But they now have a chance to interview this suspect and ask as many questions as they can, because again, we do not have a motive at this time as to what truly went down. But this is a dark day for not only UNC, but for the nation. This is a story that has touched so many states, national news coverage of another day of shooting that took place on a campus where students come to learn, students come to make new friends. And we talked about freshmen as well too. We've heard from freshmen on camera. This is their first time on a college campus, and certainly not a time where they want to experience this. And we have an interview with that student now. We'll let you hear.
Our lecture hall had close to 250 something students in it, and the alert went off on the presentation. We were asked to stay calm, and the lecture continued. And then someone told us that they were right outside the Genome Sciences building, which was where we were at, and that is when everyone started freaking out. That is when we were told to take a decision by ourselves about what to do. A lot of us are 17, 18, 19, and it is horrible that we're just told what to do and make a decision for ourselves. Like, we're looking at the people of authority in class and no one knows what to do, which was horrible. And the only thing, me and a couple of my friends hid inside a closet. It was where they kept all the computer mainframe stuff at, and we barricaded the closet with a huge piece of metal door that was inside. And yeah, people were calling their parents, saying goodbye, saying I love you, and it is horrible. Just no one should have to be in a situation like this, especially shiny-eyed 18-year-olds. This is my first week at college, and this is already happening, and honestly, I don't know how to feel, because we're going to be walking through the same hallways tomorrow, day after tomorrow, when things go back to normal, and I don't know how we have ever expected to feel safe, and knowing that things like that can happen at any moment.
No one spoke to me more loudly than her, right? As a parent, and really all the sound bites and all the interviews that we see, that's someone who truly is letting her feelings out, expressing herself very well, by the way, for an 18-year-old, and telling, when I heard her say, a lot of us were calling our parents and saying goodbye and I love you. That sums it all up right there, what this was all about today.
Yeah, support is going to be really, really big. And again, classes are canceled tomorrow, excuse me. It's something that a lot of students and staff are going to take advantage of when it comes to supporting each other. And, do you feel for her what she said in that moment when she said, in 2 days, we're going to walk those same hallways where this just occurred? How do you expect them to be able to do that and not think about what happened there?
I think, no classes tomorrow, but we'll see. I think that may be extended a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
All right, well, we will have live team coverage on the situation at UNC coming up tonight at 11. Good night.
Florida braces for Category 3 hurricane landfall with life-threatening 12-foot storm surge and winds up to 115 miles per hour. The evacuation orders and airports closing. Here are tonight's headlines.
This is going to be a major impact.
Governor DeSantis warns millions